By the year 2045, Earth has become a living nightmare. A colossal monsters over the ruins of civilization, its body a mass of dark muscle, jagged maws, and glaring red eyes. With a deafening roar, it lashes out, crushing steel and stone. The defense force is overwhelmed, and one soldier is sent flying as the monster advances. In the chaos, Commander Han Sung moves with deadly precision. When a massive tentacle crashes down, he slashes through it. He drops his blade, reloads mid-motion, and unloads round after round into the creature's exposed core. Without looking back, he orders a fallen soldier to get up and move. The terrified soldier obeys, scrambling after him. Han Sung charges forward, rifle blazing, leading the last defenders in a war that has ground humanity down for decades. As he pushes through the wreckage, his eyes lock onto a strange anomaly ahead. He realizes their final objective is right in front of him. Suddenly, the ground erupts in blinding golden light. Intricate magical patterns swirl around Han Sung, freezing him in place. Before he can react, he disappeared from the battlefield. He reappears suspended in midair inside a vast stone hall. Glowing golden chains bind his wrists and ankles as robed mans below celebrate the success of their summoning ritual, calling him an otherworldly hero. Han Sung struggles, staring in disbelief at the radiant shackles. An elderly man in ornate robes steps forward, calmly welcoming him to the Empire. He bows and pleads for Han Sung to defeat the Demon King and save their world. Han Sung snaps, demanding answers, shouting that he belongs in Korea, fighting his own war. The elder's face hardens. He activates the Oath of Restraint, unleashing magical lightning that tears through Han Sung's body. Screaming in agony, Han Sung is forced into submission as the elder coldly warns him to obey. Gasping for breath, Han Sung feels golden energy tighten around his neck like a leash. Wiping blood from his mouth, he stares in disbelief at the people who now control him. They offered him a sword and promised to send him back to his world if he succeeded. The request had felt less like a choice and more like an order wrapped in mercy. Han Sung had accepted. That decision marked the beginning of his life as the so-called otherworldly hero. The title was a lie. Instead of honor, he was treated as a servant, hauling carts and armor like a beast of burden. He fought endless battles, cutting down enemy after enemy. 3 years passed, then 5. Then 10. He gave up his entire youth to the blade, until it all ended in a final, titanic battle where he personally slew the Demon King of Valror. After the victory, Han Sung allowed himself to hope. Night after night he dreamed of returning home, believing his debt had finally been paid. But the old priest returned without a smile, his face cold and indifferent. There was no portal home, only another mission. When Han Sung protested that this wasn't their promise, the priest calmly replied that the Empire's unification still required more blood. The priest pointed to a torchlit bulletin board and a wanted poster for Betrayal of the Teutonia Night Kingdom. No more dissidents could be allowed to rise. Kill this final threat, and Han Sung would be free. When Han Sung hesitated, the magical collar around his neck ignited with searing pain, forcing obedience. In that moment, he understood the truth. A dog in a collar never chooses its master. They owned him completely. The memory shatters into the present. The Teutonia capital burns as Han Sung stands among the ruins, his blade buried in Battle's chest. The duel is over. Blood spills from the knight's lips as he looks up, not in hatred, but in pity. He calls Han Sung a fool. Han Sung, shaken, whispers that he had no choice and apologizes to the man he killed. Battle collapses to his knees and rejects the apology. With his final breath, he delivers a grim warning. Smiling faintly, he tells Han Sung that he will be discarded next. The light fades from his eyes, and his body falls, leaving Han Sung alone in the firelit wreckage. As the adrenaline drains, exhaustion sets in. Han Sung convinces himself it's finally over. He can go home. He looks to his hands, sensing someone approaching from behind. It's Count Brandenburg, clad in heavy ornate armor. Before Han Sung can turn, the air tightens. A magical force locks his neck in place. His eyes widen as a cold blade drives through his chest from behind, bursting from his breastplate in a spray of blood. Grand General Brandenburg twists the sword, his face curled into a cruel smile. Leaning close, he praises Han Sung's strength, not as a hero, but as the Empire's loyal hunting dog. Blood pours from Han Sung's mouth as the truth hits harder than the blade. The Empire never planned to honor their promise. It was all a lie. The sword tears through armor and flesh with ruthless finality. Brandenburg's voice is calm and dismissive, asking why anyone would keep a tool that has outlived its purpose. A hunting dog is only useful while it bites on command, and Han Sung's leash has been cut. His body crashes to the ground, vision fading as pain floods his shattered form. A mocking farewell echoes above him. The blade remains impaled in his torso, glowing with lethal blue energy, pinning him to the stone. As the light leaves his eyes, hatred keeps him conscious just long enough to swear an oath. He will never forget this betrayal. One day he will return, and drag this cursed empire into total annihilation. One life ends, and in the same moment, another begins. Han Sung snaps back to consciousness, but everything feels wrong. He's wrapped in cloth, his body heavy and unresponsive. A blinding light hits his eyes as voices announce the birth of a boy. A golden-haired woman cradles him, introducing herself as his mother, her gentle voice a stark contrast to the battlefield he just left. Behind her stands a tall man with long dark hair and predatory eyes. The moment Han Sung sees him, recognition hits. This is Duke Saxon, the Empire's most feared necromancer and black mage. The truth becomes clear instantly. He has been reborn inside the Black Tower, at the necropolis itself, the heart of the Empire's forbidden magic. His gamble succeeded. The Stone of Reincarnation, a forbidden artifact he kept as a last resort, activated. He didn't just survive, he was reborn as the first son of the Saxon ducal family, one of the most powerful bloodlines in the Empire. Born with unlimited resources, Han Sung grins inwardly. Once he grows and masters necromancy, he will slaughter every imperial bastard who betrayed him. The room suddenly grows tense. The Duke notices something strange. The baby isn't crying. The Duchess looks down in concern. Han Sung is breathing fine, eyes wide and alert, but he refuses to wail. As a battle-hardened warrior, he finds crying beneath him. An elderly nanny steps in and confirms he's healthy. The Duke still worries that a silent newborn could be a bad omen. Smiling calmly, the nanny suggests a simple solution. If they want him to cry, they just need to make him. Without warning, she smacks his bottom. The sharp sting sends Han Sung into silent outrage, his mind exploding with curses as his dignity takes the real damage. The Duke watches closely, commenting that the child's stubborn resistance shows a strong will, clearly inherited from his father. The Duchess relaxes and asks to handle it herself. Inside, Han Sung panics, screaming that he's fine, but he's trapped in a helpless body. She raises her hand and brings it down gently, then begins patting his back in a slow, soothing rhythm. That warmth triggers something deep inside him. Memories surface, cold nights as a mercenary, sitting by dying campfires, surrounded by danger and loneliness. That harsh life clashes violently with the present moment. His mother's trembling hands radiate pure, unconditional love, something he hasn't felt in years. For a man who hasn't cried since childhood, the emotion overwhelms him. Unable to hold it back, Han Sung finally breaks down, crying loudly as his wails echo through the luxurious nursery. 8 years pass in the blink of an eye since Dale was born. Late at night, under the pale moonlight, the Duke and Duchess sit together in their bedroom. The Duke remarks on how fast time has flown, while his wife shifts the conversation to their son. She notes with pride and concern that Dale is still in the study, buried in books, just as he has been since the age of 4. Holding her hands, the Duke teasingly says Dale inherited his obsession with magic from her. Then, with a knowing look, she asks if he remembers the promise he made. In the vast library, Dale is shown sitting on the floor, surrounded by towering shelves, reading with unnatural focus for his age. Back in the bedroom, the Duke smiles and confirms he remembers clearly. He promised never to teach their son necromancy. The Duchess accepts this with a sly smile, hinting that he has already prepared a special birthday gift for Dale. Their quiet moment is abruptly interrupted by frantic knocking. A terrified maid bursts in, reporting that something is wrong with young Master Dale. The Duke's face hardens instantly, and both parents rush to the library. Inside, the room is in chaos. Dale collapses to the floor as violent blue mana erupts from his body, filling the air with crushing pressure and sending books flying. He cries out for his parents as the unstable energy spirals out of control. They arrive just as the mana fades. The Duchess rushes to him in panic, checking his body and demanding to know what happened. Exhausted and drenched in sweat, Dale forces a smile and claims he's fine. The Duke remains still, carefully observing the lingering mana, narrowing his eyes, stunned by the idea that an 8-year-old could release mana on his own. The Duke's eyes glow red, shadows curling behind him as he demands to know if Dale truly released that power himself. Inside, Dale panics. He knows he revealed too much. To avoid suspicion, he quickly acts like a frightened child, staring up innocently. Suddenly, the Duke's aura vanishes. He breaks into a proud grin, releases Dale, and pats his head, declaring that this is exactly what he expected from his son. He even regrets that he can't personally teach him necromancy. Dale lowers his head, hiding his thoughts. If his father won't teach him necromancy, he wonders how he'll ever achieve his revenge. But he pushes the thought aside. Relieved, his mother tells him to return to his room while the servants clean up. Dale cheerfully agrees, masking his ambition behind a bright smile. As he leaves, he hears his father tell his mother Elena that he's finally decided on the perfect birthday gift. The scene then shifts to a grand, sunlit ballroom filled with nobles gathered for Dale's birthday banquet. The hall buzzes with conversation as guests note that nearly every noble of the Noir dukedom is present. Among the crowd, people casually wonder when the young master will finally make his appearance. The wait drags on as noise from the crowded banquet below fills the second-floor hall. Dale slumps in a velvet chair, already exhausted by the delayed ceremony and the sheer number of people celebrating his birthday. After a lifetime of cold isolation as a hero, being pampered as a noble's son feels deeply uncomfortable. His thoughts drift to the chaos in the library the day before. While rereading The Life of the Hero from Another World and recalling his past power, the mana in his young body spiraled out of control. The incident only confirmed one thing: this body has a natural affinity for necromancy, and ignoring it would be a waste. The real problem is his father. Dale remembers the Duke mentioning a special gift and wonders if that had been his chance to ask for dark magic training. The double doors suddenly open. Lady Elena enters in a dark blue gown, apologizing for the delay and wishing him a happy 8th birthday. Behind her stands a silent figure in brown robes. At Elena's signal, the stranger steps forward and removes her hood, revealing an elf with violet-blue hair. She is introduced as Sophia, an elder of the Blue Magic Tower and a master of water magic. She calmly announces that she will be his teacher. Dale is stunned. Elena cheerfully explains that he will study water magic, a discipline centered on defense and control. To Dale, the message is obvious. His mother is blocking him from learning dark magic. Before the lesson begins, Sophia requests a private conversation. Elena agrees, and the two walk through the snowy grounds outside the manor. Sophia states plainly that she was ordered to teach only water magic, then confronts Dale directly, asking if he is disappointed. She knows he wants necromancy. Dale freezes as she explains the truth. When the Duke courted Elena, she feared his reputation as a dark mage. To marry her, he swore never to teach his dark arts to their children. The vow was so serious that even the elders of the Noir Magic Tower wore white at the wedding. Because of that promise, dark magic is forbidden to Dale, for now. Still, Sophia hints that she may help him change Elena's mind in the future. She offers to guide him, but Dale hesitates, pointing out that elves revere natural law and see necromancy as taboo. Sophia laughs and counters by a reminder that the priests resurrecting the dead, asking whether that is truly any different. To her, holy resurrection and necromancy are the same at their core. Dale realizes she is nothing like the rigid elves he expected. Her flexible mindset makes her an ideal mentor. Standing among the snow-covered trees, Sophia begins the lesson. She senses that Dale has already formed part of a mana circle and instructs him to complete it. Excitement surges through him. A full first circle is required for advanced magic. He places a hand over his heart and focuses. Blue energy crackles as his eyes glow with power, reminding him how different this world is from Earth. Mana fills the world like an endless ocean, but it is lethal without control. Humans survive it by forming a mana heart circle, a stabilizing pathway carved around the heart. Dale visualizes the process perfectly. The moment his understanding locks in, the air vibrates. Rings of bright blue light erupt from the snow, spiraling around him as his mana stabilizes instantly. Sophia begins her usual lecture, explaining that rotating mana is a delicate process that normally takes a month of meditation. Mid-sentence, she freezes. Standing before her, Dale is already surrounded by the stable glow of a completed mana circle. Calmly, Dale says he already finished. Sophia is left speechless. He has only just started training, yet a perfect circle is rotating inside him after mere minutes. Suspecting she may be facing a natural-born prodigy, she asks him to try releasing mana through the circle. Dale agrees and raises his hand. For beginners, releasing mana is extremely difficult, but Dale is different. He remembers his past life, when he was a warrior forced to use destruction magic through painful engravings because he lacked true magical affinity. Back then, he could never rival Duke Saxon. This time, however, he carries the blood and talent of the Noir Magic Tower Master. Mana doesn't resist him, it responds. Instead of releasing raw energy, Dale shapes it. He condenses the mana, forming a sharp diamond-like structure, imagining it as the weapon that will one day pierce the Empire's throat. Sophia watches in disbelief. Normally, a novice's mana collapses instantly once released. Instead, a fully crystallized ice bolt floats above Dale's palm. Dale worries he may have sacrificed power to maintain its form, then releases it. The bolt tears through the air and slams into a massive wooden stump. The impact is devastating. The stump doesn't crack. It explodes, splintering into thousands of frozen shards. The shockwave forces Sophia to brace herself as her hair whips back. When silence returns, only debris remains. The spell pierced straight through dense wood with terrifying precision. This level of power and control is impossible for an 8-year-old. A chill runs down Sophia's spine as she wonders what Dale truly is. The dangerous aura fades, and Dale turns to her with innocent concern, asking if he did something wrong. From Sophia's perspective, the spell was far from accidental. The mana followed a complex, lethal command structure: rotation, acceleration, and extreme compression, forming a crystalline ice construct based on the golden ratio of military magic. Dale executed a perfectly lethal formula on his first attempt, completely unaware of its significance. Sophia smiles gently, but her mind races. Later, inside the Duke's estate, the atmosphere is heavy. Sophia sits across from Duke Saxon, who demands to know why she refuses to continue teaching his son. He insists that a child who reached the first circle in minutes is a prodigy. Sophia interrupts him and explains the truth. The moment Dale formed the first circle, he didn't merely cast a spell, he instinctively created a flawless killing formula. She recalls the image of the boy standing within a storm of blue magic, casting not for beauty or study, but for efficient destruction. She delivers her conclusion directly. Young Lord Dale is gifted at killing. The Duke freezes as her words sink in. He assumes that, as an elder of the non-violent Blue Magic Tower, her refusal is rooted in moral opposition. She corrects him at once, calmly sipping her tea. It's not that she refuses to teach the boy. She feels compelled to guide him personally, to ensure his talent doesn't become a curse. She recalls his innocent smile when he first summoned water, so different from the lethal ice he later produced. Seizing the moment, the Duke insists there's no reason she shouldn't teach him. Sophia counters that the boy already seems to possess the power he seeks, suggesting his path is already diverging from his father's wishes. The tension sharpens when she brings up the Duke's past, his love story, and the promise he made to Elena. Her gaze hardens as she rebukes him. Honoring the promise doesn't give him the right to decide the future of the living, especially not a child with such terrifying, transcendent talent. Outside the sealed doors, Dale sits against the wall, hugging his knees. Small and isolated in the vast hallway, he's cut off from the discussion shaping his fate. He strains to listen but hears nothing, assuming they're talking about him. Letting out a heavy sigh, he buries his face in his legs. His thoughts drift to the overwhelming power of his first spell and how it startled Sophia. He resolves to better control his output to avoid drawing dangerous attention. As his anxiety deepens, a shadow looms over him. Dale looks up to see a towering knight in full armor. His face lights up as he scrambles to his feet, calling out to Uncle Helmet. The rugged knight smiles, one hand resting casually on his neck. He asks why Dale is sitting on the floor, then teasingly Dale asks where Helmet has been instead. Ignoring the question, Dale rushes toward him. Helmet laughs, saying he's been away protecting the ducal family and slaying monsters, then lifts Dale into the air. Dale smiles, until his gaze falls on the knight's armor. In an instant, the childish look in his eyes vanishes, replaced by sharp, cold insight. He studies the scent and marks on the armor and states plainly that Helmet hasn't just been fighting monsters, he's been in a dungeon. In this world, dungeons and monster outbreaks are a constant threat. Even after the Demon King's fall, peace never came. Dragons, orcs, and skeletal beasts still ravage civilian lands. To hold them back, each territory's knights devote their lives to clearing unexplored dungeons or exterminating monsters that spill out during dungeon breaks. The Duchy of Saxon suffers more than any other. Ironically, this crisis is the result of the boy now living within its walls. In his past life as the otherworldly hero, he defeated the Demon King, triggering a political decision that forced Duke Saxon to absorb the Demon King's territory. In effect, the duchy became the dumping ground for the monsters left behind by the war. He warns Uncle Helmet to be careful, earning a warm laugh. When Helmet asks if he's worried, Dale simply remarks that he looks healthy. The estate's grand doors open as the staff, led by Duke Saxon, welcomes Helmet with formal respect. The Duchess, radiant in a blue gown, rushes forward and pulls Dale into a tight embrace, proudly celebrating the news that he's reached the first circle of magic. Standing behind her, the Duke congratulates his son and grants him a reward. Anything he wants. Dale considers asking to learn necromancy, but immediately discards the idea. It would expose him as far too calculating for a child. He needs something innocent. Putting on a perfectly childish expression, he declares that what he wants is a little sister. The reaction is immediate. The Duke and Duchess turn bright red, completely flustered by the bold request, while Uncle Helmet turns away, his shoulders shaking as he struggles not to laugh. Later that night, with the moon hanging over the castle city, Dale lies alone in his bedroom and finally drops the act. Exhausted from pretending to be a child and from using magic earlier, he stretches out and drifts towards sleep. Suddenly, a sharp pain grips his chest, dragging his consciousness into a nightmare from his past. In the vision, rain pours down as Brandenburg grips Hansung by the throat. The man mocks him for becoming soft in this new life, surrounded by warmth and loving parents. A cold voice warns that the Empire has not forgotten him and will hunt him down until he is completely erased. Dale jolts awake, gasping for air as blue arcs of mana explode around his body. His heart feels like it's about to burst. He immediately recognizes it as a mana rampage, an uncontrollable and potentially fatal surge of power. Forcing himself to move through the pain, he staggers into the hallway, scorching the walls as mana leaks from him. Cursing the Empire, he pushes outside into the freezing night, hoping the cold will suppress the raging energy. It only makes things worse. The pain sharpens, his aura growing more violent until he collapses into the snow, clutching his chest as his vision fades. Just before he blacks out, a calm voice calls to him. Standing before him is Sephia. After a brief look of surprise, she immediately identifies his condition as a mana rampage. As she raises her hand to stabilize the energy, she senses the terrifying potential hidden inside him. The violent mana slowly retracts into Dale's body, leaving the air humming with residual power. The danger passes, but Sephia watches him carefully, realizing that if his emotions had turned malicious, the damage would have been irreversible. "Dale," she calls. "Yes?" he answers weakly. She explains that magic is a mirror of one's heart, which is why each mage's magic is unique. Then she delivers a chilling assessment. His talent lies in taking lives, a power far too dangerous to leave unchecked. Because of that, she produces a thick azure-bound tome sealed with silver clasps and hands it to him. Dale accepts it and immediately recognizes the symbol on its cover, a necromancy spellbook. Smiling warmly, Sephia tells him it may be fate that she will teach him from now on. She wishes him a happy birthday and pulls him into a gentle embrace. Days later, outside the northern gate, the two walk across a frozen plain toward a distant tower. Dressed in white, Dale looks to his teacher. "Rabbits?" "Yes." Ahead, a snow-white rabbit sits still. Sephia instructs him to remember hunting with his father. Dale raises his hand as blue mana flares to life, magic circles spinning rapidly in the air. "Yes, master," he replies calmly. A concentrated beam of blue energy fires from his palm, striking the ground. The impact erupts into a massive pillar of azure flames, blasting snow and debris outward and leaving a crater where the rabbit once sat. As the smoke clears, Sephia studies the destruction. Despite killing, his hands never trembled. She turns to him and explains that even the same spell takes countless forms depending on the mage. Then she asks if he knows why. Dale looks up at her, his face blank. "I do not. Magic," Sephia explains, "is nothing more than a reflection of the caster's mind." As she raises her hand, electricity and mana crackle between her fingers, proving her point. Magic manifests the heart's inner image through mana particles, inevitably exposing one's true nature. Dale watches in silence, sweat forming at his temple. She continues, explaining that spell names like Firewall are merely tools to solidify imagination. Even the magic towers operate the same way. The red magic tower values order through raw power, which she demonstrates with an image of a mage engulfed in violent flames. The blue magic tower, by contrast, seeks order through harmony, represented by calm, flowing water. Each tower's philosophy directly shapes the form of its magic. She explains the structure of magical society. Beyond the red and blue towers, there are also the noir, white, and green magic towers. She stops when she notices Dale's blank stare, his confusion obvious. Amused, she sighs and admits the topic is still too advanced for him. Dale focuses on the dead hair lying in the snow as dark violet mana coils around his hand. Basic necromancy is simply the art of control. He visualizes invisible mana strings connecting his fingers to the corpse, guiding the skull, stabilizing the spine, and moving the legs. He pulls. Purple miasma engulfs the hair. Its limbs snap into place, and it rises unnaturally, crimson light glowing in its eyes. Sephia praises him and immediately asks if he can continue. Dale answers without hesitation. The necromantic energy fades as he shifts mana types. A blue magic circle forms, glyphs spinning rapidly. He casts frozen armor, his left eye glowing sapphire as moisture in the air freezes instantly. Jagged ice erupts and encases the undead hair in a thick shell. She inspects the construct and notes that the spell's form is solid. Then, smiling dangerously, she prepares to test it. A beam of pure magic fires from her hand. Dale reinforces the spell with all his strength as the attack slams into the ice, exploding in snow and light. When the mist clears, the hair is still standing. The armor is cracked but intact. Dale gasps for breath, then beams with pride, thrilled that he blocked her attack. She commends him and notices his lingering excitement, asking what he wants. Dale eagerly requests further instruction in water attribute magic. Her smile disappears instantly. She refuses. Shocked, Dale can only stare as she explains that what he used today was merely basic water magic. Mastery of the attribute requires far deeper understanding. most beginners struggle to learn even one type of magic. Those who wield two are called dual mages, and at his age, that level of control is nearly impossible. From her perspective, his request is nothing more than excessive ambition. Dale's demeanor shifts in an instant. The childish enthusiasm disappears, replaced by crushing pressure as dark mana crackles around him and his eyes darken. His voice drops as he questions the word greed. Dale slumps, looking up with watery eyes and feigned hurt, questioning whether everything he has shown is still not enough. He reminds her that she promised they would move forward together. Guilt pierces her composure. Sweating and flustered, she abruptly ends the lesson and retreats, leaving him alone in the snow. That night, Dale returns to the silent study carrying heavy grimoires. The act is gone. Convinced he can do everything on his own, he vows to prove himself so completely that she'll have no choice but to teach him. As he sets the books down, a sudden surge of agony hits. Uncontrolled purple energy erupts from his body, forcing him to collapse to his knees as his vision blurs and consciousness slips. A voice calls his name, growing louder through the haze. The aura flickers, then vanishes. Dale snaps back to awareness in the dark room, staring ahead with hollow eyes and deep bags beneath them. The next day, the snow-covered forest is quiet as Sophia walks beside him, clearly worried by his exhausted appearance. Dale admits he stayed up all night preparing something. She warns him not to overdo it. He smiles obediently and agrees. Without warning, Dale stops and raises his hand. Dark mana forms a complex purple magic circle, and a massive ice construct rises cleanly from the frozen ground. Sophia notes that he has already mastered the spell's form, but the casting doesn't end there. The construct begins to shudder. Cracks glow across its surface before it violently detonates from within. As the debris settles, a rabbit infused with violet energy remains at the center. Its eyes glow red as necrotic power swells inside it. A moment later, it explodes. A devastating shockwave of dark energy and jagged ice tears through the clearing. Sophia barely manages to raise a blue hexagonal barrier as frozen shards and bone fragments slam into it like bullets. When the storm fades, the ground is gouged into a crater, choked with lingering miasma. At the center stands Dale, calmly holding a swirling sphere of blue and violet energy. He proudly explains that he fused Ice Explosion's water attribute with Corpse Explosion's dark attribute and asks if that makes him a dual mage. Sophia stays silent as she processes what she's seen. The technique is unlike anything she knows. By combining fragmentation with explosive force, he turned the debris itself into lethal weapons. For a moment, she doesn't see a child, but the shadow of a battle-hardened killer, magic designed purely for slaughter. She wonders what kind of mindset could produce such violence. Dale notices her stare and tilts his head innocently. Then his attention snaps elsewhere. The dark aura vanishes, replaced by childlike excitement as he calls out to Uncle Helmet. From the trees, a formation of heavily armored knights rides in. At their head is a smiling man with dark hair and glasses atop a warhorse. Helmet greets Dale and Sophia, confirming their return from a dungeon raid and praising the cavalry behind him. The knights sit tall and unmoving, their armor gleaming in the cold light. These are the elite of the dukedom of Saxon, warriors who wield aura-coated lances. Leading them is their captain, Sir Helmet, one of the continent's legendary 7 swordmasters, whose presence alone commands the battlefield. Dale clasps his hands together, smiling brightly as he looks up at Helmet on horseback. He reminds him about their promise to teach sword techniques, making sure it hasn't been forgotten. Helmet laughs, telling the boy not to worry and warning him not to stay out in the freezing cold. As Uncle Helmet rides off across the snow-covered plains, Dale waves enthusiastically, wishing him a safe journey. Sophia quietly suggests they head back inside, and Dale nods, turning away from the vast white fields to follow his master toward the towering castle in the distance. That night, the warmth of the castle's drawing room contrasts sharply with the cold outside. Tea pours into a porcelain cup as Duke Saxon questions Sophia about her report. Calm and composed, Sophia confirms the shocking news. Young Master Dale has already mastered his first magic circle in both necromancy and water magic. Duke Saxon's expression darkens, reminding her that she was only instructed to teach water magic. Sophia admits she went beyond those limits, explaining that Dale's hunger for knowledge pushed her to teach him more than elemental spells. Instead of anger, Duchess Elena simply asks that the water magic lessons continue. Sophia agrees, apologizes to Duke Saxon for breaking her promise, and quietly leaves. Once alone, Elena sinks back in her chair, overwhelmed by the reality that their 8-year-old son has become a dual mage. Duke Saxon admits that Dale's talent sometimes frightens even him. Rising to his feet, the Duke makes a firm decision. He will personally take over Dale's education and teach him necromancy himself. In his mind, he sees Dale not as a child, but as a future lord inheriting his power and legacy. He apologizes to Elena for the harsh path ahead, Elena explains that necromancy is feared as the magic of death, but Dale must become strong enough to stand above that fear. Elena leans into his touch, silently giving her trust. With her consent, Duke Saxon swears to train their son to be the best. In the cold, oppressive underground magic workshop, thick with dark mana, Dale stands rigid as his father scolds him for reviving life without fully understanding the power he used. Panic floods Dale's thoughts. He was only using the techniques his previous teacher showed him. On a ritual table nearby, a small white rabbit twitches, the crude result of his spell. Clicking his tongue, Duke Saxon raises a glowing purple finger and forbids Dale from ever using such basic necromancy again while under his instruction. Surrounded by towering shelves of ancient tomes, Dale sits at a desk far too big for him as his father issues his first command. He must memorize the bone and muscle structures of all living beings. The books are dense medical texts that would challenge even trained doctors, but Dale silently accepts the task. He studies until his eyes burn, engraving every diagram and term into his memory. When he finishes, Duke Saxon finally gives an approving nod. The theory is complete. Now, they move on to practical magic. Dale's excitement returns when his father produces a grimoire radiating dark energy, but it vanishes the moment he sees what lies on the stone table: a lifeless goblin corpse. The sight of a real body freezes him in place. Duke Saxon explains that the quality of materials means nothing compared to the skill of the necromancer. A master can turn even an ordinary soldier into a disaster. He orders Dale to animate the goblin. Gathering his dark mana, Dale steps forward as purple energy crackles around his hand. He quickly realizes a bipedal corpse is far more complex than a rabbit. As he weaves mana strings into the goblin's body, he makes a fatal mistake. By accelerating post-mortem rigidity to boost defense, he locks the corpse's joints. The mana threads snap and the goblin jerks stiffly, moving like a broken puppet with rusted hinges. Dale freezes, overwhelmed by the lesson, and turns to his father for help. His father steps in, placing a pale hand on the goblin's chest. He agrees with Dale's defensive logic, but points out its fatal weakness: mobility, and tells him to watch closely. Dark mana erupts from his hand, wrapping the goblin corpse in a violent swirl of amethyst light. The body lifts into the air as the magic pierces deep beneath its skin. His father calmly explains that rib cages exist to protect organs, but the dead have no need for organs. With a sickening rhythm, the goblin's torso twists and reshapes. Ribs crack, invert, and burst outward. No longer shields, but weapons. Bones elongate and sharpen, extending from the chest and arms like scythes. He demonstrates the core principle of necromancy: understand the structure only so it can be violated, reshaping biology to serve the caster's will. The goblin drops to the ground, no longer a stiff corpse but a spiked monstrosity looming in purple gloom. Dale stares, terrified and awed by the brutal efficiency of black magic. Realizing this is its foundation, he looks up and asks to learn the true mindset of the noir magic tower. His father smiles, a sharp, chilling expression, and kneels to meet his gaze, resting a hand on Dale's shoulder. He whispers that truth exists within death, and to reach it, one must understand the crushing weight of life. As the lesson settles, Dale's mind shifts to a vision. Dale in armor stands in a raging inferno, eyes filled with sorrow. The world becomes fire and ash. A broken man kneels, pressing his forehead to scorched ground, begging for mercy and calling out to the hero. Towering over him is a man clad in jagged black armor, eyes glowing crimson. Without hesitation, Dale raises a massive, blood-soaked blade. The sword falls. The world turns red. "Dale!" The voice tears him from the nightmare. Dale gasps awake in his dim room. Duke Saxon stands beside him, a hand resting on the boy's shoulder. "Are you all right?" the Duke Saxon asks, concern threading his calm tone. Dale stares blankly. The image of the blood-stained night still burned into his mind. Sweat cools on his skin as he forces his breathing to steady. "I'm fine, father," he says, crushing the memory down. But outside the castle, the storm has already begun. As Dale's magical training continues, the news spreads across the empire. Duke Saxon has broken his vow and begun teaching his son dark magic. The revelation sends shockwaves through the nobility, shattering the empire's fragile balance. Now, every eye turns to the child at the center of the scandal. Weeks later, the focus shifts to physical training. On the dukedom's training grounds, dust erupts as wooden swords collide with bone-shaking force. Dale darts beneath a heavy swing from Helmet. Helmet grins as he attacks without restraint. His blows are crushing, yet Dale meets each one head-on. Mana sparks and wood splinters scatter as their weapons clash in rapid succession. Helmet unleashes a devastating overhead strike. Dale blocks, but the weight sends him skidding across the dirt. He tumbles, rolls, and instantly regains his footing, digging his heels in to stop himself. Then, suddenly, Helmet's grip slips. His sword flies from his hands and stabs into the ground. Helmet freezes, eyes wide in shock. Dale stands a short distance away, panting, weapon raised. "Not bad, young master." Helmet laughs, raising his hands. Dale glares at him, breathing hard. "There's no way a knight like you would drop his sword," he says. "You let go on purpose, didn't you?" Helmet immediately denies it and walks over to retrieve his sword, stating that since Dale used real battlefield techniques, an ordinary person would have been killed in a single exchange. As Dale grips the hilt, a sharp pain shoots through his hand. His fingers tremble, red and numb from Helmet's parry. Staring at his shaking palm, he hides his shock. Helmet admits that Dale's swordsmanship is so exceptional, it's a shame he's a mage. He approaches Dale, who is rewrapping his hands as the sun sets over the training grounds. Helmet points out that mages are always protected by escort knights and asks why Dale trains this hard, kneeling to check his injured wrists and telling him there's no need to push himself to injury. Dale answers confidently, tightening his bandaged fist. He says it wouldn't be fitting for the Duke's son to rely solely on guards or defensive magic, and adds that he couldn't pass up the chance to learn swordsmanship from one of the continent's 7 swordmasters. Helmet freezes, then bursts into loud laughter, praising Dale's answer and declaring that if he had a son like him, he'd have no regrets. Dale smirks, amused that he finally earned praise from him. Their moment is interrupted by approaching footsteps. An elegant woman in a green dress appears, commenting on their high spirits. Dale's attitude instantly softens as he happily greets his mother and worries about her being out in the cold. She smiles warmly, saying she came to see how hard her son was working. The scene fades into a memory filled with sunlight and the scent of wood near the training grounds. Dale recalls his mother gently teasing him about a birthday wish he once made. He recalled what happened. He had asked for a little sister. His mother had smiled, already pregnant, and told him he would need to protect her. Young Dale had eagerly agreed. 10 months pass in an instant. In the master bedroom, Dale leans over the bed, staring in awe at the baby wrapped in white cloth. He pokes her cheek in wonder, amazed that this tiny, fragile being is his sister. His mother asks if he wants to hold her, sending Dale into panic as he doubts his own clumsiness. Encouraged by his laughing mother, he nervously takes her into his arms. As her weight settles, his fear fades. His mother remarks that the baby looks just like him. As if understanding, the infant smiles brightly. His mother claps in surprise, noting that the baby usually cries with her but seems perfectly content in Dale's arms. Dale beams with pride. His father then asks how he feels. Dale answers seriously that while she is light, she feels incredibly heavy. His father places a hand on his shoulder and explains that this is the weight of life, a burden and a blessing he must never forget. He then reminds Dale that Master Sephia is waiting for his lesson. The warm memory dissolves into the icy cold of a snowy forest. Dale stands among frost-covered trees, facing Master Sephia, her blue hair standing out against the white landscape. She announces that today's lesson will shift to real combat. When Dale asks if he can truly fight seriously, she calmly orders him not to hesitate and to attack her with everything he has. Dale focuses as magic circles ignite around his hands. He releases his mana, sending blue energy forward. Sephia moves instantly, forming a volatile sphere of magic and swatting his attack aside with ice and force, sending a shockwave through the snow. She counters immediately, criticizing his first strike for being too slow. She catches a fragment of his magic and crushes it effortlessly, her smile turning predatory as she scolds him for holding back. Dark blue energy swells around her as she warns him to raise a barrier at once. Realizing the danger too late, Dale hurriedly forms a hexagonal shield of light just as her attack crashes down. The impact cracks his barrier and rattles his bones, ice rapidly forming along his arm. He grimaces, knowing a single mistake would have meant serious injury. Sephia observes that he managed to form ice armor in that instant and praises him sincerely. Dale pants in the clearing, broken magic falling from his clothes as he steadies himself. Sephia straightens and commands him to attack again. Dale drops low and activates a molecular combination spell. The ground shakes as a massive wall of blue ice erupts behind Sephia, towering over the trees. She spins around in surprise, confused by the use of a static ice wall in a high-speed fight. Examining it, she realizes the mana density is abnormally high. As she touches the surface, cracks of glowing hexagonal light spread through the ice. She recoils, recognizing it as a containment structure, not a wall. The spell rapidly shifts into a frost explosion fragmentation formula. From a distance, Dale quietly whispers, "Detonate." The mana structure collapses. In the next instant, a blinding sphere of blue light swallows Sephia as she realizes too late that the ice wall is essentially a massive grenade. The compressed ice, reinforced beyond its limit, releases all its stored energy at once. The forest erupts as a violent shockwave of shattered ice and raw mana tears outward. Dale dives behind a jagged ice barrier, bracing against the blast. As the debris settles, He peers out, his heart pounding. It worked. By overcompressing the ice wall and detonating it, the hardened molecules became lethal shrapnel, a perfectly executed magical grenade. It'll be hard to dodge that, Master, he thinks, torn between pride and worry. Thick white mist drifts through the trees. Dale calls out, his voice unsteady. Master Sophia? A silhouette forms in the fog. For a split second, Sophia looks monstrous, bathed in ominous blue light, her expression cold and vengeful. Dale freezes in terror, stammering her name. Then the image vanishes. You called? Sophia says cheerfully as she steps out of the haze, completely unharmed, faint magical energy still fading from her fingers. Dale exhales in relief, realizing the demonic vision was likely born from his own guilt. Sophia touches her face and winces. A thin line of blood runs down her cheek. She studies it, then smiles in surprise. That was impressive, Dale, she says, wiping the cut away. I never imagined a first circle mage could actually wound an elder of the magic tower. Dale stiffens. I never meant to hurt you, Master. I know, Sophia replies softly, kneeling in the snow to meet his eyes as the winter sun sinks low, casting long violet shadows across the field. But I'm grateful for this wound. It means you trusted me enough to use your full strength. Dale blinks, stunned. Sophia smiles brightly. As your master, that makes me prouder than anything. Really? Of course. You're an excellent student. She gently ruffles his hair. Dale relaxes, leaning into her hand with a relieved smile, crediting her teaching. Sophia says nothing more, simply watching him with deep satisfaction. Later, inside the warm luxury of the mansion, Duke Saxon reviews documents behind a grand desk while Sophia stands before him. His eyes immediately catch the bandage on her cheek. Why are you injured? He asks. Sophia touches the spot lightly. This? I was careless. It happened while teaching the young master. His formula was extremely sharp. Duke Saxon sighs, exhaustion flickering across his face. I'm always indebted to you, Sophia. Nonsense, she replies cheerfully. Teaching a talented student like him is a joy. Duke Saxon speaks again, his tone turning serious. May I make one more request? Of course, Sophia answers. He delivers an urgent report. Intelligence confirms that an orc warband has crossed the mountains and breached their territory. The Duke scoffs. To him, a stray orc group is insignificant, something a small cavalry unit could erase. His reflection in the window, eyes glowing crimson, mirrors his ruthless confidence. But his boredom fades as he reveals his real intention. He plans to send Dale. Sophia's composure breaks. She steps forward in alarm, sweat forming as she argues that Dale is not ready for real combat. The Duke remains unmoved. He assures her the boy won't be placed on the front lines, but his stance is absolute. Protecting the territory is the sacred duty of House Saxon. A purple aura flares around him, crushing in its authority. As the heir, Dale must learn this responsibility. There are no exceptions. Realizing she can't change his mind, Sophia lowers her gaze and asks what her role will be. The Duke smiles faintly. He intends to entrust Dale with his personal artifact. Sophia is ordered to guide the boy and stabilize him until he can withstand the artifact's overwhelming power. They walk toward the family vault as the weight of history presses down on the corridor. Artifacts are not tools. They are entities with will, demanding a price in mana or life itself. Visions of mages bleeding from their eyes and warriors consumed by cursed power underscore the danger. The stronger the artifact, the deadlier it becomes. Yet House Saxon has long mastered the art of subjugating such darkness. The Duke, Sophia, and a wide-eyed Dale stop before the towering doors of the artifact vault. The Duke tells Dale that, as the heir, he must prepare for battle. Dale's response isn't fear, it's excitement. His eyes shine with thrill, a real fight at last. Duke Saxon explains that he will join the subjugation force to eliminate the orcs, but the Duke adds a condition. Before Dale can fight, he must learn to control the darkness of their bloodline. The vault doors open, revealing a vast cathedral-like chamber. Endless shelves rise into the shadows, glass cases displaying crowns, jewels, and weapons radiating a sinister red aura. Dale stares in awe. Duke Saxon explains that these are Demon King artifacts, spoils taken when their ancestors conquered the Demon King's domain. The Duke warns Dale never to compare them to ordinary magic items. The mana they emit is intense, dangerous, and unforgiving. Until he learns control, he is forbidden from touching anything recklessly. The warning comes too late. When Sophia and the Duke turn around, the space beside them is empty. The Duke scans the vault in confusion, stunned that the boy vanished in a single breath. Deep inside the vault, Dale strolls alone, studying the display cases. His presence stirs the dormant malice within the artifacts. Whispers creep into his mind as the relics call out, tempting him with power and revenge. A shield throbs, sensing his hatred and urging him to kill. A jeweled necklace pleads with him, promising they could rise to greater heights together. Dale listens with bored eyes. He acknowledges the darkness resonating with his own resentment, then dismisses them with a smirk. None of them are enough. Adjusting his tie, he decides he needs something far stronger. His attention shifts to a lone mannequin draped in a jet-black cloak. Dale freezes, recognizing it instantly. It is the Shadow Cloak, a top-grade artifact once worn by Duke Berta of the Demon King's army during the Heroes era. Legends say it gives physical form to shadows, turning its wearer into a living nightmare. Without hesitation, Dale throws it over his shoulders and fastens it with a grin. The reaction is immediate. The Duke spots him across the vault and shouts his name, but it's already too late. The moment the cloak settles, the air screams. A violent torrent of pitch-black energy erupts, engulfing Dale as the artifact asserts its presence. Within the artifact's abyssal consciousness, a voice howls endlessly. It is pure hunger, echoing through the void. Dale floats in the darkness as the entity repeatedly demands to be fed. The Shadow Cloak is no ordinary relic. It can summon storms of shadow and command darkness like a living beast. History speaks of its devastation, but to wield it, the host must do more than wear it. They must completely subdue the creature within. Mid-laughter, the shadow suddenly snaps, biting down viciously on Dale's ankle. Without breaking his smile or conversation, Dale slams his heel into the ground, crushing the shadow back into submission. He politely thanks his uncle for the concern. Then Dale grows serious. He asks for a real sparring match. Helmet is startled but agrees. He draws his massive sword, and a terrifying blue aura erupts from his body like a storm. Declaring he won't hold back, Helmet prepares himself. Dale stands firm as his cloak whips in the violent energy, fully aware that facing one of the continent's 7 swordmasters may be far beyond his current limits. Helmet stands relaxed, his massive frame casting a long shadow as he rests his great sword on his shoulder. With a confident, almost playful smile, he tells Dale not to be afraid and promises to fight using only basic swordsmanship, completely suppressing his aura. Dale scowls at the idea of being underestimated, but Helmet's next step erases any thought of mercy. As he moves forward, the stone beneath his feet groans under his weight, proving that even his basic strength is monstrous. Declaring that a knight must always fight sincerely, Helmet prepares himself. For Dale, this spar isn't about knightly ideals. It's a test of his new artifact, the Shadow Cloak, and the weapons he can forge from its living darkness. Dale activates the artifact, and violet energy thickens the air around him. He launches Shadow Blade Rush, causing the cloak to burst into a swarm of razor-sharp tendrils that shoot toward Helmet. Helmet's eyes widen in real surprise as the spikes force him to swing defensively. Steel clashes against hardened shadow, the impact shaking the air, and Helmet's interest is fully piqued. Now intrigued, Helmet shifts to offense. He leaps high and brings his great sword down with a roar, putting his full weight into the strike. Dale looks up and commands the shadows to surge upward. The collision is deafening as the blade crashes into a wall of dark energy. The ground beneath Dale fractures from the pressure, forcing a grunt from him, but the defense holds. Helmet lands in shock, sweat trailing down his face as he realizes the boy blocked a blow that would have cleaved ordinary weapons in half. Dale, breathless but uninjured, understands just how terrifyingly durable his top-tier artifact truly is. The successful block only excites Helmet further. Laughing loudly, he demands 10 more exchanges and resumes his assault with renewed ferocity. The watching knights stand frozen in terror, sweating as they witness a child enduring an onslaught that would have crushed them in seconds. They feel an overwhelming wall separating their limits from Dale's potential. During a brief lull, Dale glances back at them, genuinely confused by their horrified expressions. Days later, the heat of training gives way to the cold silence of deployment night. Dale stands beside his horse under the moonlight, the winter air biting into him. His mother stands before him, holding a sleeping infant, her face tight with worry. She threatens to confront his father again, admitting she can't bear the thought of sending him into danger. Dale reassures her that his father and Uncle Helmet will protect him, but she tearfully asks what will happen if he gets hurt. With a seriousness far beyond his age, Dale tells her he must grow stronger, not for glory, but to one day shoulder the burden of the dukedom. He gently touches the cheek of his sleeping sister Liz, and explains that he needs this experience now so he can protect his family in the future. Looking into his mother's eyes, he asks her to trust him and allow him to become strong enough to shield them all. Seeing his unwavering resolve, her resistance finally breaks. She gives him a sad yet proud smile and grants her permission. At sunrise, Dale sits atop his horse and offers his mother a calm, reassuring smile, promising to return soon. By dawn, the temporary base is filled with silent ranks of steel and waiting mounts. A soldier reports that the troops are ready. The famed Black Cavalry stands in formation, their dark armor absorbing the morning light. Duke Saxon turns to Dale and orders him to give the command to march in his place. Stunned, Dale asks for confirmation. Duke Saxon gestures to the army and tells him that this cavalry will one day be his. These are not just House Saxon soldiers, they are Dale's knights. The weight of true leadership hits him hard. Gripping the reins, his shock turns into resolve. This will be his first battle as their leader, and he vows not to repeat the mistakes of the past. The shadow manifests as a massive, formless mass of violet sludge and malice towering over the boy. It scoffs at him, sensing resistance, and refuses to submit. Jagged claws and massive jaws form as it attacks, trying to tear into his mind. Dale doesn't flinch. His eye shines with piercing blue light as his will slams head-on against the artifact's hunger. Back in the vault, the atmosphere turns suffocating. The Duke and Sophia watch in horror as a sphere of black energy swallows Dale. Time is running out. The Duke realizes that if this continues, his son's mind will shatter and be devoured. Panic grips him. His hand glows with magic as he prepares to forcibly pull Dale out. Just as he reaches forward, the chaos ends. The energy doesn't explode. It collapses inward, wrapping neatly around a small frame. Dale steps out calmly, the shadow cloak resting obediently on his shoulders. He smiles up at his stunned father, answering the call as if he had simply wandered off. Sophia rushes to him, frantically checking for injuries. Dale casually assures her he's fine, saying it only stung a little. He grins and touches his cheek, leaving the adults speechless. They can't comprehend how a child endured the malice of such an artifact and emerged unscathed. As they struggle to process it, Dale tugs on his father's sleeve and asks, cheeks flushed and eyes bright, if he can try the other artifacts too. The Duke and Sophia are left stunned, their grave worries shattered by the boy's innocent greed. Defeated, the Duke reluctantly agrees. Dale thanks him enthusiastically and immediately dashes deeper into the vault. That day turns into an all-day and night spree of artifact testing. Days later, under the bright sun of the ducal training grounds, Helmet stares in disbelief. Dale stands casually, wrapped in the infamous black cloak. Helmet recognizes it instantly and asks if Dale is truly all right, reminding him the shadow cloak is notorious for rejecting its users. Dale waves it off, saying it only causes a mild, prickling sensation. Dale looks down at his shadow pooled at his feet and muses that the creature was probably just lonely after being sealed away for so long. The shadow forms a small, jagged face with glowing eyes and teeth, clinging to him like a pet. Dale suggests it simply wanted a friend. Helmet laughs nervously, finding the idea absurdly kind. Dale raises his fist and commands the swords of Saxon to march. The response is immediate and thunderous as hundreds of soldiers roar in unison, lifting their lances in salute. The operation mobilizes 250 cavalry alongside the elite winter wardens. Their target is a force of roughly 1,000 orcs fleeing winter famine across the mountains. Intelligence places the horde moving downstream along the Saxon River, creating a rare chance for interception. The plan requires crossing the lower river and attacking from an unexpected direction. However, the river is a raging torrent, seemingly impassable. Sophia politely asks them to move aside as blue mana gathers in her palm. Dale watches with open excitement and greets her warmly. Despite her creed of harmony and non-violence, Sophia steps in to support her student. Magic erupts around her in a brilliant, icy shockwave. She reaches toward the raging river, and it obeys. Towering sheets of ice race across the water, crashing together until a solid, gleaming bridge forms over the chasm. Turning back, she signals the army. The path is open. Duke Saxon offers his thanks as the cavalry thunders across the frozen span. Sophia then faces Dale, her expression softening. She bids him farewell, her role complete. Dale passes her in silence. As the army advances, she lingers, watching his back with a wistful smile, wondering how a single student could weigh so heavily on a master's heart. Night blankets the valley where the orcs are camped. Unaware of the danger above, they gather around their fires. Without a sound, the winter wardens strike. Dozens of flaming arrows arc through the darkness, crashing into the camp like meteors. Tents explode in fire. Orcs scream as they burn or are pinned by blazing shafts. A massive orc leader roars, trying to rally his kin, but chaos consumes the camp. From the tree line, Helmet seizes the moment, ordering the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd battalions into a wedge. The ground begins to tremble as the horses surge into a full charge. Riding within the formation, Dale feels no fear. Only calculation. He notes the rhythm of the hooves, the speed surpassing 40 kilometers per hour, and the combined mass of armored riders and mounts. As the 3-meter lances lock into place, he recognizes the terrifying power of the Cull lance formation and knows the impact will be devastating. Violet darkness floods the battlefield. A knight wrapped in volatile energy crashes forward like a living siege engine. Magic amplifies his body beyond mortal limits, and under this onslaught, the orcs' crude defenses collapse instantly. From the ridge above, Dale watches in awe. This isn't a battle, it's a slaughter. He remarks on how one-sided it is. Beside him, Duke Saxon calmly agrees, calling this force the pride of the duchy's cavalry. But Helmet warns Dale not to lower his guard yet. Below, the momentum shifts. The ambush succeeds, but the sheer number of orcs prevents total annihilation. Helmet sees the fight dragging on. He signals to withdraw, deciding to regroup and grind the enemy down with rotating charges instead of a prolonged clash. A pillar of white light shoots into the sky, the signal to retreat. Orders echo through the chaos as knights pull back, hooves kicking up ash and dust, but not everyone escapes. One knight is isolated near the canyon wall as his horse falters. Two massive orcs close in. He tries to raise his weapon, but it's too late. A spear slams down, crushing through his armor and driving into his leg, pinning him to his mount. His scream echoes as blood sprays across the rocks. He collapses helplessly, another orc rushing in with a jagged cleaver to finish him. Dale gasps from the ridge. Duke Saxon only narrows his eyes, coldly calling it unfortunate. One knight lost. To him, the sword of House Saxon is already broken. Dale turns in anger, demanding to know why they're doing nothing. No one answers. He realizes he can't reach the canyon in time. Closing his eyes, Dale turns inward. If he can't cross the distance physically, he'll do it with magic. But a normal spell won't suffice. Orc hide is thick, tougher than ordinary monsters. From this range, he needs absolute precision and overwhelming piercing power. Dale's mana erupts as he dismantles the standard ice bolt in his mind. He visualizes a high-caliber sniper rifle, the Barrett and a Lapua Magnum round, and rewrites the spell with a ballistic trajectory built for extreme velocity and stability. He isn't casting magic anymore. He's engineering a projectile. His eyes snap open. A layered blue magic circle forms in midair, and the atmosphere trembles as the spell fires. A beam of azure light rips across the battlefield in an instant, freezing the air behind it. Below, an orc raises its cleaver to finish a fallen knight, but the strike never lands. The ice beam crashes down from above, piercing the creature's skull and slamming it into the ground in a violent burst of frost and gore. Helmet immediately grasps the distance and inhuman precision of the shot. Before anyone can react, Dale snaps his reins and sends his horse leaping off the ridge, sliding down toward the fight. Sir Helmet shouts in alarm, demanding to know where the young master is going, but Duke Saxon stops him with a raised hand. He watches Dale descend in silence, newly fascinated. Creating an original magic formula at that age, one with such destructive kinetic force, reveals terrifying potential. As Dale charges toward the fallen knight, Duke Saxon realizes the boy's internal magic system is already nearing perfection. A massive orc steps forward, red eyes burning as it looms over the battlefield. Behind it, the remaining horde regroups into a wall of muscle and steel. From his saddle, Dale analyzes the situation with cold clarity. He identifies two flaws. His body froze in panic during his fall, and his spell formulas are far too long for close combat. As the orc advances on the wounded soldier, Dale realizes he can't afford the full Ice Magnum incantation. It's inefficient. His thoughts jump to mathematics, how complex equations can be reduced to elegant results. If formulas can be simplified on paper, magic can be stripped to its core. A confident smirk appears. Blue mana surges as he compresses it tightly and issues a single command. Ice Bullet. A focused beam of freezing energy slams down from above, piercing the orc's skull and dropping the giant instantly. The soldier stares up in disbelief, stammering as he asks why the young master would risk himself for a mere retainer. Dale dismounts, his boots hitting stone as his cape flutters. With a gaze both gentle and commanding, he tells the man not to worry. House Saxon never abandons a loyal sword. A guttural roar shatters the moment. Another orc charges from the shadows, jagged blade raised. Dale steps forward, placing himself between the beast and the soldier. The air shifts from icy blue to ominous purple as dark energy gathers at his fingertips. Shadow Blade. A crescent of pure darkness erupts from his hand, slicing through the charging orc and carving a glowing line straight through its torso. Dale's expression darkens. His eyes lose all warmth as he whispers to the swirling shadows, "Consume them." The purple energy morphs into a massive skeletal maw, clamping down on the corpse. Bone and flesh are pulverized in seconds before a spotless skeleton is spat onto the cavern floor. The final enemy freezes in terror. Dale tilts his head, his innocent smile returning as if nothing happened. He asks why it's still standing, then casually fires another ice bullet, ending it with a dull thud. Silence fills the cavern. Dale turns back to the injured soldier, his bravado fading as the injured soldier laughs breathlessly and admits his legs won't move anymore. Thunderous hooves echo from the tunnel entrance as Uncle Helmet arrives in full armor, leading the reinforcements. Dale leans against the soldier and leaves the aftermath to his uncle. Helmet draws his sword and roars an order for the cavalry to charge in the name of House Saxon and their young master. Later, night settles over the Saxon base. Campfires crackle between rows of gray tents, and armored guards stand watch. Inside the command tent, tension hangs thick. Dale stands before a long table, dwarfed by his father. The Duke acknowledges the successful subjugation of the orcs, then coldly demands to know why Dale charged into enemy lines alone. Sweat beads down Dale's temple under that crushing gaze. Confused as to why he's being scolded after a victory, he straightens and explains that he acted as a future leader of House Saxon, just as his father taught him. The Duke listens, then scoffs. He calls Dale's reasoning weak. The words hit hard. Frustration boils over as Dale challenges him, demanding to know why he stood by and watched a knight die without intervening. The Duke rises, towering over the table, and delivers the brutal truth. On the Northern Demon King's front lines, knights face endless hordes. Those who draw their swords cannot do so expecting to be saved. The Duke's expression hardens as he delivers his verdict. He admits he hoped Dale would save the knight, but points out the fatal mistake. By intervening, Dale taught those who must survive through their own strength that someone might come to save them. The Duke asks how many knights with that mindset live long enough to matter, and the silence answers for him. Dale lowers his head, the color draining from his face as the logic sinks in. Looking down from above, the Duke explains that the knights of his land must sharpen themselves endlessly against constant threats. Only when they reach their absolute limit does he step in. That, he declares, is the true duty of their house. Dale can't argue. It's a cruel truth he understood in his previous life but forgot in the moment. Then a heavy hand lands on his shoulder. Dale flinches, only to find his father's expression completely softened. The Duke smiles and praises Dale's will, telling him never to lose that spirit. Relief replaces the tension as Dale nods in quiet understanding. The Duke opens the tent flap, sunlight flooding in, and announces it's time to return to the castle. Days later, the incident becomes legend. Across the empire, storytellers spread the tale of the young ducal heir who charged into a monster horde to save a single knight. With each retelling, the story grows, until people claim he slaughtered 1,000 orcs alone. Walking through the market in a hooded cloak, Dale pulls it low over his face, cheeks burning as he listens to the wildly exaggerated praise. Still, the event changes the duchy. At the training grounds, everything feels different. When Dale arrives, the knights stop instantly, drop to one knee, and salute him with thunderous respect. Blushing, Dale tries to wave it off, insisting it's unnecessary, but their eyes show it isn't the rumors they honor, it's his courage. "Stand proud, young Master Dale," Helmet declares, standing beside him with a broad, encouraging grin, his armored presence radiating confidence beneath the warm daylight. Helmet raises his fist. "For the future of young Master Dale, we must become even stronger. You got it?" The soldiers roar back in unison, fists raised high. Dale stands small among the armored giants, overwhelmed by their passion, managing only a nervous but grateful smile. The cheers fade as a maid approaches. She bows politely. "Young Master Dale, the guests from House Orheart have arrived." Helmet's tone shifts at once. "Thank you." He looks down at Dale. "Shall we go, young master?" Dale nods, anticipation lighting his face. As they walk, his thoughts turn to House Orheart. He remembers the stories of martial House Orheart and its patriarch, Bardel, the legendary sword. Once a legendary noble of the Teutonia kingdom, Bardel and his house were destroyed when the Empire's unification war reduced their glory to ashes. Dale glances up and notices sweat sliding down Helmet's temple. The knight's jaw is tight, his usual cheer gone. Dale realizes Helmet is remembering the legendary sword, the man who guided him into knighthood, and that this meeting is likely painful for him. They reach the grand audience hall, its massive doors already open. Inside, Duke Saxon and the Duchess sit upon their thrones. "You're right on time," the Duke says. "You trained again today, didn't you?" "Yes, father," Dale answers with a respectful bow. "The guests have arrived," the Duke continues, gesturing forward. "Escort them properly." Footsteps echo across the polished floor as two figures enter without attendants, a clear sign of their fallen status. A young girl in a white military tunic walks slightly behind a woman dressed in mourning black, her face hidden beneath a veil. The fact that they traveled here alone speaks volumes. The woman curtsies deeply, hand over her chest. "I, Vanessa Orheart, humbly greet Duke Saxon." The Duke calmly welcomes them as Vanessa introduces her daughter, Charlotte Orheart. Charlotte lifts her head, revealing striking teal eyes filled not with warmth, but barely contained rage. Her fists are clenched as she struggles just to call Vanessa mother, unable to hide her resentment. Dale notices her intense glare, confused. Vanessa sharply scolds her for refusing to bow properly, but Charlotte trembles and repeats her mother's name, her pride refusing to bend. Before things worsen, the Duke steps in with sympathy, acknowledging their hardships and asking Dale to escort Charlotte around the castle to ease the tension. Dale agrees immediately and approaches her with a polite smile, extending his hand. Before he can finish speaking, Charlotte screams for him not to touch her and violently slaps his hand away. The sharp sound echoes through the hall as Dale freezes in shock. Duke Saxon, the Duchess, and even Helmet recoil. Charlotte stands there shaking, tears forming as she spits out an insult about shameless imperial nobles. Vanessa panics and demands she apologize, but Charlotte turns and runs for the exit, fleeing the hall. Dale snaps out of his daze and chases after her. Back in the audience chamber, the atmosphere grows heavy. Vanessa, dressed in mourning, bows deeply and apologizes for her daughter's behavior, explaining that recent events have left her emotionally unstable. The Duchess gently asks what happened. Vanessa reveals that a new overseer, Count Brandenburg, known across the Empire as the Holy Knight, was assigned to their territory. Despite his reputation, he is infamously called the Pig King. She explains that he seeks to produce powerful heirs by violating talented swordsmen, even targeting Charlotte, who is still underage. Her voice trembles as she recalls Charlotte barely escaping before he could touch her. Though her daughter survived, the trauma remains. As a fallen noble, Vanessa admits she lacks the power to protect her. She desperately begs House Saxon to accept Charlotte as a maid, believing it's the only way to keep her safe from that monster. Meanwhile, Charlotte wanders alone into the frozen training grounds, clutching a sheathed rapier as snow blankets the silent wooden dummies. Dale finds her there and calls out, but she barely responds, her eyes distant. When he asks where she's going, she coldly says she doesn't care. Puzzled but gentle, Dale approaches. Charlotte notes his wringing hands. She asks if his hand is hurt. Dale said it's good. Dale watches her go, noticing the redness around her eyes. Despite her hostility, he realizes she's still just a child, one clearly haunted by what she's been through. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. Charlotte snaps around, all traces of lethargy gone. In one smooth motion, she draws her rapier, the blade cutting through the air and leaving a streak of blue energy as she drops into a battle stance. "Then fight me," she declares, pointing the tip straight at him. Dale blinks, stunned by the sudden hostility. Charlotte's eyes blaze with desperate intensity as she shouts, "Dale of House Saxon, draw your sword." "What?" Dale mutters, sweat forming on his brow despite the cold. He can't believe it. The girl who was crying moments ago is now openly challenging him to a duel. Charlotte points her rapier at Dale and demands a duel. Wrapped in a heavy cloak, Dale meets her challenge with calm amusement, saying he won't fight without a reason. She explains she's come because of the rumors, stories of a legendary warrior who supposedly slaughtered 1,000 orcs to save a fallen knight. Inside his mind, Dale imagines an overblown heroic farce and nearly laughs at the absurd exaggeration. Charlotte then reveals her real goal. She intends to defeat the man rumored to be unmatched in the Empire to prove her strength, but her ambition runs deeper. She claims she must become strong enough to protect her house from that man. The words wipe the smile from his face. When she names him, the truth becomes clear. Count Brandenburg, the Holy Swordsman. Dale instantly recognizes the name. The image of the Holy Swordsman ignites deep hatred within him. Brandenburg is the Empire's loyal hound and the traitor who betrayed him. Realizing they share the same enemy, Dale sees potential in her, whether as a pawn or an ally. But first, she needs to understand the vast difference between them. He shifts his stance and looks down at her with a chilling smile, mocking her as a child who knows nothing of the world. He dares her to attack with everything she has. She doesn't hesitate. Green light erupts from her rapier as she lunges. Her blade moves in a blur, carving emerald arcs through the air. Dale meets her strike head-on, steel crashing against steel as sparks scatter across the snow. She unleashes a relentless barrage, but he calmly parries every blow, his eyes tracking her movements. He notices how she redirects force with precise wrist motions and senses the aura reinforcing her strikes, allowing her to wield a weapon far heavier than her frame should permit. As they move across the frozen ground, he understands her power. Just as mages generate mana through a circle in their heart, knights accumulate aura within their bodies to surpass human limits. She is a true knight. Believing she has the advantage, the girl forces her blade forward, sweat dripping as the battle blurs with memories. She recalls her mother's stories of the father she never met. She remembers her vow to protect their house as the daughter of the legendary sword. Endless days of striking a wooden post flood her mind. Even after her kingdom fell and her house was destroyed, her sword never stopped. Driven by that past, she pours everything into one desperate strike, unable to understand why her blade feels unbearably heavy. Charlotte charges like a raging storm, her rapier wrapped in surging aura, her face twisted with resolve. Yet every attack is effortlessly deflected. No matter how fiercely she strikes, Dale stands like an immovable wall. Confusion and frustration tear at her mind. Why is every opening she creates instantly shut down? Sparks burst again as their blades clash. Dale's movements are precise and economical, making Charlotte's desperate flurry look chaotic. He senses the disorder in her rhythm and realizes the truth. She isn't just fighting him, she's struggling against a reality she refuses to accept. Charlotte lets out a strained scream and throws everything she has into one final, reckless thrust. Dale steps forward with cold precision. With a sharp twist of his wrist, he catches her blade and wrenches it upward, ripping the rapier from her grip. The sword spins through the freezing air as time seems to slow. Charlotte reaches out in panic, her fingers closing on nothing, her identity as the legendary sword's daughter slipping away with the hilt. The rapier crashes into the snow, standing upright like a grave marker. Charlotte drops to her knees. The adrenaline fades, leaving her shaking and hollow. Staring at the ground, she asks why she can never win. Dale stands over her, his cape fluttering, and answers without mercy. She is not the legendary sword himself. Tears well as she clutches her head, crushed by a legacy she cannot bear. Dale's tone softens, but his words do not. He tells her that pride in her bloodline isn't wrong, but pride alone cannot protect her house from the man they both fear. The holy swordsman was peerless, and she simply does not have that strength yet. Her tears spill as she looks up and asks the only thing left to ask. What must she do? Dale's expression shifts from warrior to lord. He swears on the name of House Saxon that he will protect House Orheart. Charlotte freezes in shock. Dale pulls her sword from the snow and offers it back to her, hilt first. He promises that until she becomes strong enough to defeat their enemy herself, House Saxon will be her shield. When she asks why he would do this, he smiles warmly and tells her that her sword, her potential, is worth it. There is one condition: she must swear to become a sword for him and for House Saxon. Wiping her face, Charlotte kneels and takes her rapier. With unwavering resolve, she swears on her honor as a knight. What might look like a childish vow between nobles becomes an unbreakable oath. Later, beneath moonlight in the Duke's office, Dale is questioned. The Duke notes that Charlotte accepted a position as a maid in House Saxon without complaint and asks what happened between them. Dale calmly replies that they made a promise. He admits he pledged House Saxon's protection to House Orheart. The Duke narrows his eyes, asking if this was done out of pity. Dale denies it and reveals his true aim: Charlotte's legendary sword bloodline and her exceptional talent. He didn't offer charity, he invested in future power. The Duke smiles in satisfaction. A new legendary sword will rise under his roof, dealing a decisive blow to his rival, Brandenburg. Far away in Malberg, the Lord of Brandenburg explodes in rage. A wineglass shatters as he demands to know how they failed to capture a single girl. His subordinate stammers that the assassins were slaughtered, likely by Charlotte herself. The Lord dismisses them in disgust. He approaches a display case holding the holy sword Durandal. Gripping the hilt, his fury twists into obsession. He whispers to the blade, promising to secure a perfect heir at any cost. Then he orders the Thieves' Guild to be contacted. Price is irrelevant. Charlotte must be taken. A week later, within the Duke's estate, Charlotte adapts to her new life. She studies relentlessly and undergoes strict maid training, but her combat training continues. On the snowy training grounds, she and Dale face each other with weapons drawn. Helmet asks if they are ready. Dale smiles confidently. Charlotte tightens her grip on her rapier and exhales sharply. At the signal to begin, the two children explode into motion. Steel crashes against steel, sparks flying as they clash in the snow. Watching with a tense frown, Helmet wonders if this can even be called a children's duel. Their technique isn't fully refined, but their speed and killing intent are unmistakable. They move like blurs, trading precise, lethal strikes. Dale feints, spinning as his cloak snaps through the air, attacking from an unexpected angle. Charlotte reacts just in time, barely raising her guard to block. The duel ends abruptly. With a single motion, Helmet intercepts the final strike, catching the blade with his gauntleted hand. The clash stops, leaving only the sound of heavy breathing. "Excellent," Helmet declares. Turning to the girl, he nods in approval. "Well done, Lady Charlotte." Charlotte doesn't accept the praise. Cold and dissatisfied, she tightens her grip on her rapier. She asks him directly what she's lacking. Helmet's tone shifts. He asks if she knows the true essence of the rapier. She answers confidently that it's thrusting. He immediately denies it. The essence, he explains, is footwork. He breaks down the exchange, pointing out that when Dale dodged her thrust and closed the distance, she should have retreated and waited for another opening. He adds that excessive arm extension causes the blade to shake and lose accuracy, and concludes that her fundamentals need to be rebuilt. Charlotte is stunned. Helmet continues, stating that her posture and footwork have been flawed for some time. Embarrassed, she admits she's never had a proper teacher. Helmet assures her that now he'll correct her unusual thrusting stance. The wording hits her a second later, and she panics. Helmet bursts into booming laughter, amused by her reaction. Dale watches from behind, nervously hoping she doesn't lose her temper. Helmet pats her head, saying he was only teasing her because her reaction was cute. As he laughs, Dale studies him carefully. He knows Helmet isn't just a friendly giant, he's one of the continent's 7 swordmasters. With guidance like that, Charlotte's growth will be explosive. Dale feels a competitive spark ignite. If he doesn't push himself, she may catch up sooner than expected. Forming mana circles is notoriously difficult. A mage must sense the flow of mana through the heart, stabilize it, and engrave that flow into the body. For most, creating even one circle takes decades. In a snowy clearing, Cephia stands frozen in shock. He has already formed his second circle. Dale explains calmly. Mana circle strength is measured in RPM. A typical first circle mage reaches around 300 RPM. Dale's first circle spins at 2000 RPM, while his newly formed second circle is already stable at 400 RPM. Since 300 RPM is enough to start forming the next circle, he already qualifies to begin a third. He decides to test his new capacity immediately. Raising his hand, blue mana crackles as he enhances an existing spell. He reinforces the molecular structure of the ice to increase its mass and hardness, then forms a large ethereal barrel around it to boost rotation and velocity. The magic circle flares to life. Ice bullet, armor-piercing bullet. He fires. The projectile screams through the air and smashes into a massive tree, drilling clean through it and the stone behind it. When the mana disperses, a perfectly round hole remains, opening straight to the sky beyond. The clearing falls silent. Sophia can only whisper in disbelief, asking what just happened. Dale examines the hole, satisfied. The added circle made high-level modifications far easier than expected. Sophia regains her composure and praises him, calling him a fast learner. Dale bows and thanks her sincerely. As she watches him, memories surface, him saving a knight from an orc horde, and how he handled Charlotte. Despite his age, his competence is frightening. He uses his power responsibly, but the scale of his potential is terrifying. She taps his nose gently, thinking that while he scares her sometimes, he inspires even greater trust. Then she pulls him into a tight embrace, snow falling around them. She whispers that he is truly her proud student. Dale freezes as his master suddenly hugs him, his cheeks burning red at the unexpected contact. The memory lingers, leaving him flustered and uncomfortable. Realizing she's far too casual with physical affection, he decides the only way to clear his head is training in the freezing dawn. In the silent ducal courtyard, blanketed in snow and painted in blue and white, Dale forces himself to focus. He tells himself this is no time for distractions. Raising his hand, mana flares in his eyes as he commands the snow to rise. Jagged walls of ice erupt from the ground, forming a defensive barrier. But he doesn't stop there. He summons a massive shard of ice in the air, then shatters it mid-air into dozens of deadly fragments. The shards rain down like buckshot, striking the ground in a precise, lethal spread. When the spell ends, Dale analyzes the result. The area damage is effective, but he notes that next time he should concentrate the mana like a solid slug for maximum impact. Suddenly, a voice calls his name. Dale spins around in surprise to see Charlotte holding a rapier. She's been watching him practice. She explains she's been training her footwork under Sir Helmet, and Dale notes her dedication to swordsmanship. After an awkward pause, she apologizes for her earlier behavior, bowing her head and stumbling over formal titles as she scolds herself for being rude. Her sincerity catches Dale off guard. Instead of being offended, he smiles and tells her he forgives her, asking her not to be so formal. Relief floods her face, and the tension between them completely disappears. They talk quietly, bonding over their shared love of the cold weather and late-night training. Leaning against a tree side by side, Dale realizes how rare it is to find someone who understands his comfort in solitude and harsh climates. The warmth he feels has nothing to do with magic. From the manor above, the Duke and Duchess watch them through a window. The Duke remarks on how quickly their son is growing up. The Duchess smiles, already deciding that it's her duty as a mother to guide this budding relationship and ensure it flourishes. Not long after, the Duchess walks among the commoners, distributing bread and offering kind words. Though she performs her charitable duties with grace, her thoughts remain focused on her son's future. In the slums, she dedicates herself to relief work, handing out food and opportunities to the poor. Following her example, Dale and Charlotte help distribute bread. Suddenly, a filthy, desperate young boy rushes up and clings to Charlotte's arm, begging for help. Through tears, he claims his mother is dying and needs immediate aid. Against his better judgment, they follow the boy deep into the slums. As they move through narrow alleys, Dale grows increasingly suspicious. The knights are far behind, the path feels like a trap, and the boy chose to approach Charlotte instead of any adult. Looking up, Dale spots a hooded figure watching from the rooftops. He recognizes the uniform instantly, Thieves' Guild. At that moment, Dale realizes the truth. There is no sick mother. Charlotte is the real target. The boy finally stops in a secluded courtyard, pointing into the shadows and claiming he needs to fetch his mother. But the fear in his voice gives him away, confirming everything Dale already knows. The trap snaps shut. Heavy boots block the alley exit as 3 armed men step from the shadows. Their leader, a lanky man with green hair and a mocking grin, twirls a dagger and pretends to worry about children wandering into danger. Then his eyes lock onto Charlotte. He says they only want the girl, and that the boy is just trash to be thrown away. Charlotte stiffens in fear, but Dale steps in front of her. Hidden beneath his bangs, he smiles coldly and introduces himself with dramatic flair as Dale of Saxon, swearing to protect Charlotte Orheart from low-born scum like them. His words hang like a challenge. The thugs laugh. The green-haired leader mocks Dale's noble chivalry and says he chose the wrong time to play hero. With a flick of his hand, he orders the attack. Charlotte grips Dale's sleeve and whispers that she left her sword behind. Dale calmly tells her not to worry. This is exactly what he wanted. Turning back to the attackers, he prepares to test his new shadow cloak technique under the excuse of self-defense. As the men charge, Dale releases his restrained power. Violet-black energy erupts from his body, flooding the alley. The thugs hesitate, mistaking the crushing pressure for wind as the air turns cold and thick with living shadows. Dale watches the leader's face twist in terror as he realizes what kind of power this is. He screams for his men to dodge, but it's too late. The shadows explode outward, sealing the alley and surging like a tidal wave. One thug is swallowed whole as darkness consumes him mid-charge, his scream cut short. This is Shadow Cloak's second circle application. Instead of concealment, the shadows act as a parasite, implanting undeath directly into the host. The darkness expands inside the man until a grotesque, fanged maw bursts from his torso. He screams as sentient shadows seize control, transforming him into an undead abomination. The green-haired leader freezes as the shadows merge into a massive skeletal monster towering over the alley. The creature lets out a piercing, inhuman shriek, vibrating the stone walls with hunger. Realizing he's facing forbidden undeath magic, the green-haired leader panics and orders his men to destroy the monster. While they rush the abomination, he targets Dale instead. Noble heir or not, the boy will die in one strike. He launches himself off the alley walls, daggers glowing neon green as he descends with aura-infused assassination techniques. Energy slashes tear downward, but shadows instantly rise and swallow the attack whole. The green-haired leader lands, cursing as his confidence shatters. Before he can attack again, Dale moves first. A blue magic circle spins at his fingertip, manifesting a spell modeled after a firearm. Double-barrel, 12-gauge buckshot. Blasts of condensed light fire forward like a point-blank shotgun. The impact is catastrophic. The green-haired leader is ripped through the air, blood spraying as he crashes hard onto the cobblestones. From the shadows, Charlotte watches, trembling as she whispers Dale's name. The green-haired leader coughs blood and barely forces himself upright, stunned that he's still alive. Dale observes calmly, noting that aura users are tougher than normal men. Refusing to surrender, the green-haired leader screams and launches one final desperate strike from above. But the power of Dale's shadows was stronger than his. Dale walks forward as the shadow beast behind him massacres the remaining soldiers, shrieking about its endless hunger. Amid the slaughter, Dale reaches Charlotte and gently asks if she's hurt. She nods, shaken but safe. Silence falls over the alley. Corpses litter the stones. Only one assassin remains, stumbling backward in sheer terror as Dale calmly holds Charlotte's hand. The man turns to flee, screaming. Dale raises his hand and casts a frost spell. An ice bullet slams into the assassin, dropping him with a scream. A massive purple shadow rises over him like a demon, but Dale orders it back. The creature fades, leaving the man groveling and begging for his life, promising information. The shadows beneath him form a grinning maw, mocking his desperation. The assassin nods frantically, until Dale coldly says he doesn't care. Before the man can finish pleading, dark energy crushes his skull instantly. Blood splashes the stones. Dale turns away as if crushing an insect, adjusting his collar. Charlotte follows, glancing once at the corpse. As they walk through the aftermath, Dale tells her what she saw is the true face of House Saxon, the horror the world fears. He says this power exists to protect her and asks if it frightens her. Charlotte clutches her chest, looks away, and admits softly that she is a little afraid. Charlotte's fear fades. She looks up and smiles, realizing Dale's ruthlessness was used only to protect her. She remembers the day she swore loyalty to him, kneeling with a rapier in hand, and reaffirms that vow amid the battlefield's aftermath. If his house will be the shield that protects hers, then she will repay that debt. Pressing a hand to her chest, she declares that one day she will become the sword that swings for his sake. Dale is caught off guard by her conviction. She thanks him for showing her a future and promises to grow even stronger. As Dale meets her gaze, his stoic mask cracks with quiet introspection. Unaware to Charlotte, His decision to take her in stems from deep guilt over Sir Bardel's fate 24 years earlier. When he clasps her hand, he realizes her choice carries far more weight than he expected. Far away, in Count Brandenburg's estate, the Count sits in his library, gripping his quill in fury as he curses the failure of his assassination attempt. In his hands is an invitation from the Noir Duke, polite in wording, but unmistakably a summons he cannot refuse, even with his status as the Holy Swordsman. Enraged and powerless, he slams his desk. Days later, inside Saxon ducal castle, the Count stands before the throne with his knights. The Duke sits casually, unreadable, with 2 children standing beside him. He thanks the Count for coming and apologizes for the humble welcome. The Count forces laughter, then pretends concern over rumors of a kidnapping, loudly denying any involvement. The Duke ignores him, until the air suddenly shifts. His eyes glow violet. Dark mana coils around his hand, and overwhelming pressure explodes through the hall. The Count's knights are crushed and hurled aside by invisible force. A glowing purple magic circle forms, the Tempest of Nihil. Realizing the spell, the Count panics as the Duke commands him to kneel. The pressure intensifies. The Count tries to resist, invoking his title, but his leg gives out and he is forced to the floor. Humiliated and terrified, he realizes he has gravely misjudged the Duke. Seated calmly above him, the Duke delivers his ultimatum. He claims this summons was for peace, but if the Count ever lays a hand on the children of House Saxon again, House Brandenburg will be completely erased. The threat is absolute. Moments later, the Duke withdraws his aura and offers hospitality. The Count refuses, scrambling to leave as fast as possible. As the doors close behind him, the significance of what young Dale witnessed becomes clear. This was not just intimidation, it was the spark of a future war. The image of the Holy Swordsman kneeling will spread across the Empire, igniting chaos, burning cities, and sealing his eventual execution. Later, in the Duke's private office, Sophia stands nervously as Duke Saxon uncovers a table of corpses. They are Thieves' Guild members who attacked Dale, bodies twisted, crushed, and pierced with lethal precision. The Duke states calmly that Dale did this himself. Horrified, Sophia begins to question whether her teachings have helped create a monster. Turning to her, the Duke explains that guiding Dale's overwhelming talent will require wisdom. He then offers her the position of chief advisor. Sophia lowers her hands, her thoughts racing. The Duke isn't just asking her to remain a tutor, he's asking her to become part of House Saxon itself. His gaze leaves no room for refusal as he explains that Dale relies on her, and that even he cannot guide the boy alone. If she stands by Dale's side, everything will change. After a moment, Sophia bows her head and accepts. She understands now that her duty goes far beyond magic or etiquette. Her true role is to guide a terrifyingly powerful child away from the abyss. Learning how Dale sees the world becomes her most important task, and she can't shake the image of a small boy casting an impossibly large shadow. Time passes, and Dale's 10th birthday arrives. The celebration is held in a grand ballroom glowing beneath crystal chandeliers. Unlike last year, the hall is packed with high-ranking nobles, including envoys from the Emperor's court, a clear sign of House Saxon's growing influence. Among the guests, one man immediately stands out. With fiery red hair, a white suit, and a crimson cloak, Marquis Eurus steps forward and locks eyes with Dale. He greets the boy with an easy smile. Known as Lord Crimson, Eurus is the master of the Red Tower, an infamous mage faction obsessed with power, order, and ruthless strength. Dark rumors follow them, including forbidden rituals and the modification of living bodies. Earlier that evening, the banquet had been filled with laughter, lavish food, and whispered amazement at the wealth of the Northern Territory. But beneath the celebration lay tension. Nobles from the Emperor's faction had arrived in force, their presence serving as a silent warning. As Dale observed them, their shadows felt like watchful eyes. The message was clear. The Imperial family would not tolerate any disrespect toward the Holy Swordsman, and Eurus is their messenger. He praises Dale as a once-in-a-generation prodigy, repeating rumors that the boy wiped out an entire orc horde at just 9 years old. Dale responds with a flawless smile and polite thanks, then walks away before the conversation can deepen. Behind his calm exterior, dread coils. In his past life, he was once a victim of the Red Tower's experiments. He knows exactly what kind of monster hides behind Eurus's charm. Escaping the stifling ballroom, Dale steps onto the snowy terrace, loosening his collar. These birthdays feel more exhausting every year. He would rather be training. His thoughts drift to Charlotte, now officially serving as Elena's maid. He longs to spar with her but knows exposing the daughter of the legendary sword would invite danger. Left with no choice, he considers practicing alone. Then a terrified scream shatters the silence. Dale freezes before sprinting toward the garden. In the shadows, a grotesque noble pins a maid to the ground, a dagger pressed to her throat. She begs for mercy, invoking House Saxon, but the man mocks her, confident no one will interfere during the celebration. He threatens to slit her throat if she resists and treats the assault as his right. Footsteps approach. Dale appears. The maid cries his name in desperation. The noble, Petro, briefly falters before regaining his arrogance. Seeing only a child, he pulls the maid closer and mocks Dale, even offering to teach him about women with a vile grin. Dale ignores him completely. He calmly reassures the maid and raises his hand. A glowing blue magic circle forms instantly, and Petro's confidence collapses into panic. Condensed magic erupts into a bullet of crystalline force, blasting Petro away with precise concussive power, separating him from his victim without killing him. As Petro crashes back, Dale steps forward without hesitation, fully aware of what he's done. In a world ruled by rigid hierarchy, he has just attacked a representative of the Emperor, and he does not regret it. Petro slams into the grass, stunned and gasping, only to look up and see Dale standing over him without a trace of fear. Dale orders him to kneel. The command is so absurd that Petro freezes, unable to accept a child speaking with such authority. Dale doesn't hesitate. He points at Petro and demands he kneel and apologize to Miss Eve. Humiliation and rage twist Petro's face as he seethes at the insolent brat from House Saxon. Desperate to regain control, Petro declares himself a representative of the Emperor, claiming any insult toward him is treason. Dale remains unmoved and calmly asks if the Emperor enjoys violating maids from noble houses for sport. The question hits like a blade. Petro stiffens, sweating as he stammers in disbelief at the accusation. The disturbance draws nobles from the estate. Among them, Eurus watches with amusement, murmuring that things have become interesting. Ignoring the adults, Dale gives Petro one final warning to kneel. When Duke Saxon demands an explanation, Dale answers without looking away, stating that Petro attempted to assault their maid. Petro tries to stand and fabricate an excuse, but Dale raises his hand, releasing crushing magical pressure that pins him down, coldly asking who allowed him to stand. Facing the gathered aristocrats, Dale speaks with authority beyond his years. He gestures to Petro sprawled on the ground and declares that envoys from the imperial capital act in the emperor's stead. Petro trembles, pointing weakly at the boy, but cannot speak. Dale continues, stating that Petro defiled a maid and stained the emperor's name, making punishment unavoidable. By framing the act as treason against imperial honor, Dale shifts the entire political balance. A low laugh breaks the tension. Lord Eurus praises Dale's sharp tongue and agrees with his judgment. Dale finishes his condemnation, staring down at the disgraced man. Realizing his fate, Petro looks to Eurus in terror. Eurus raises his hand as flames ignite in his palm and casually orders Petro to burn. Panic overtakes Petro as he crawls backward, screaming for mercy. Eurus offers none. Golden fire erupts and engulfs him, lighting the garden in a blinding inferno as Petro's screams echo before vanishing into the flames. When the fire fades, nothing remains. Unbothered, Eurus turns to Dale and states that he spoke only the truth, declaring it his duty to purge those who disgrace the empire. He then smiles with predatory interest and says he looks forward to Dale's future. Dale meets his gaze without flinching, his blue eyes burning with silent resolve. As the sun sinks, the chaos fades and silence settles over House Saxon. With the Emperor's envoys gone, Duke Saxon stands firm beside Dale, watching them leave. Servants whisper and nobles trade guarded looks, but the immediate tension is gone. A fragile peace returns to the estate. Morning arrives. Inside the manor, quiet reigns until a soft voice wakes Dale. Eve stands by his bed, hands folded, duty mixed with affection. He sits up and thanks her, making her flinch and blush as she turns away. Noticing her hesitation, Dale asks if she has something to say. Eve bows her head and thanks him, saying it is an honor to serve someone like him. Dale studies her, reflecting on how unfamiliar genuine loyalty still feels, even after living two lives. He smiles and thanks her. As the eldest son of House Saxon, he knows the power of his name. If using it helps bring down the empire, he will not hesitate. Later, Dale stands in the cold study before his father. Duke Saxon steeples his fingers and eyes him sharply, saying Dale has been acting strangely. Dale reveals a troubling thought. If the otherworldly hero had survived the battle with the divine sword, Bardel, the hero's blade would likely have been turned on the Saxon duchy. Duke Saxon feigns shock. When pressed, he hesitates, recalling memories from his past life. He knows the truth. The Empire abandoned the hero, fearing what would happen if their prized weapon broke free. Hiding that truth, Dale offers a logical explanation instead. He points out that after the hero defeated the Demon King, the Empire failed to cleanse the Demon King's land. Instead, they forced House Saxon to cultivate it, demanded sacrifices, and granted the cursed territory to them. As long as the land remains tainted, House Saxon will continue to bleed. Dale adds that both inside and beyond the Empire, people now call House Saxon the Clan of Darkness. Just as the Empire abandoned the hero, they will eventually eliminate internal threats, anyone who might oppose them. His father falters, sweating as he asks how Dale could know such a thing. Dale calmly claims it is deduction based on historical records. The explanation unsettles Duke Saxon, who knows the official story claims the hero died honorably. Only a few know the truth behind the hero's assassination. Dale concludes that if his theory is correct, the Empire is nothing more than an oppressor that conquers weaker nations by force. Dale stands firm, meeting his father's gaze without flinching. The Duke watches him in silence, quill in hand, struck by the boy's insight and maturity. Seeing wisdom far beyond his years, the Duke leans forward to test him. What should House Saxon do from here? Without hesitation, Dale answers, his eyes cold. House Saxon can never coexist with the Empire. Therefore the Empire must be destroyed. The words slam into the room. The Duke's composure breaks, shock flashing across his face before hardening into a dark glare. The air turns heavy. Dale, Duke Saxon warns, his voice edged with danger. Does he understand what he is saying? Dale quickly clarifies that he is not proposing an immediate rebellion. He gives a timeline. 10 years. The Duke falters, confused. 10 years? Dale explains. Across the continents, resistance groups are already rising against imperial rule. Vassals like the Duke live in constant fear of becoming the Empire's next target. The economy is collapsing, bandits roam freely, and the forced unification of 7 continents has only deepened the scars of war. By then, Dale says, House Saxon will be strong enough to protect itself and support resistance forces across multiple regions. He lays out his strategy without pause until the sun sinks beyond the tall windows. When he finishes, silence fills the study. The Duke turns away, staring at his notes. Dale asks what he thinks. The silence breaks with laughter. The Duke turns back, impressed, praising Dale's insight and saying he sees things even he cannot. He declares his pride in his son. Walking around the desk, the Duke places a firm hand on Dale's shoulder. From this day forward, Dale will no longer be treated as a child or merely the eldest son. He will be recognized as the heir of House Saxon. Dale looks up in surprise as the Duke vows to listen to and respect his words as head of the house. Dale smiles, a calculating glint in his eyes. He has been waiting for this authority, the power to move House Saxon with his own hands. The Duke invites him to speak freely and asks what decision he will make now. Dale reminds his father of his promise to treat him as an equal, then makes his request. He asks for permission to take the tower trial in the necropolis. The Duke recoils in shock. The tower trial is a deadly gauntlet where mages face the guardians of the magic tower. Those who survive rise in rank, and the one who reaches the summit becomes the magic tower master. He asks if Dale truly wishes to risk his life, warning that it is far too early. Dale has not even completed his 3rd circle. Dale answers calmly that he will soon. The Duke explains that reaching the 3rd circle usually takes until one's mid-20s, and even for someone who has already achieved the 2nd circle, the leap is difficult. Dale clenches his fist and stands firm. This decision is for both himself and House Saxon. When asked why, Dale envisions the future he seeks, standing before the nobility, publicly acknowledged by his father as a true leader. If he succeeds in the tower trial, his status as heir will be undeniable. He will earn a reputation built on proof, not rumors. Duke Saxon studies Dale carefully and asks if that is why he wants to use the tower trial. Dale answers without hesitation, yes. A rare smile forms on the Duke's face, filled with approval. He agrees and leaves the decision to Dale's judgment. The tension drains from Dale as he smiles in relief and promises to prove himself. Days later, that decision becomes reality. Their destination is Necropolis, the city of death. A massive Gothic fortress rises from the land, its black spires clawing at the sky, radiating ancient and ominous power. A carriage bearing the ducal crest stops before towering iron gates. Servants and officials stand in perfect formation. As the door opens and boots touch the ground, they bow in unison, announcing the arrival of the Noir Duke. The Duke steps out, commanding the scene in his fur-lined coat. Dale walks beside him, but exhaustion shows. His face is pale, and he stifles a heavy breath, wondering if he pushed himself too far again. The crowd notices immediately. Whispers spread as spectators recognize Duke Saxon and his son. Some praise Dale as an unprecedented magical genius, even claiming his swordsmanship rivals the Duke's knights. Others hesitate, pointing out how unwell he looks. Nearby, a blond young man sneers. This is Velik, the Academy's top graduate. He mocks Dale openly, declaring that he alone will win the tower trial and that Dale would collapse from a single push. Ignoring the chatter, the Duke and Dale advance. A woman in a sharp white suit steps forward. Her red eyes gleam behind a monocle as she introduces herself as Heiress, an elder of the tower and its secretary general. She greets Dale respectfully. The Duke entrusts Dale to her care and departs. Eris leads Dale through a long, dim corridor, explaining that 59 Academy graduates will take the trial alongside him. She opens massive double doors, revealing a colossal arena glowing blue. Balconies stretch upward into darkness, while dozens of competitors stand below, all turning toward Dale. Eris presents them as the challengers of the tower trial. From above, she addresses the hall, introducing herself again, and preparing to explain the first-tier trial of the Noir Magic Tower. She raises a silver chain holding a blue gem and instructs everyone to inspect their life necklaces. Among them, Dale listens closely as Eris explains the rules. The first trial is a battle royale. Each necklace contains a shield spell and represents one life. To eliminate an opponent, a valid hit must be landed using the corpses scattered across the field. When struck, the necklace activates, shatters, and the opponent is eliminated. The attacker gains a point. To advance, a participant must reach a total score of +3. Any use of external artifacts is forbidden and results in immediate disqualification. Dale grips his necklace, absorbing the cold efficiency of the rules. Nearby, a silver-haired participant whisper while watching him. Recognizing him as a third-circle mage despite his age, they decide he is too dangerous to ignore. Once inside the trial, everyone is an enemy, and they resolve to target him first. Dale notices their stares and smiles, his confidence radiating pressure as he waits to see if their skill can match their ambition. The command to begin the trial echoes through the hall. Chaos erupts. Purple magic circles ignite across the stone floor as the necromancers cast their spells. Lifeless bodies jerk upright, animated by mana. Velik immediately send their undead charging at Dale. One corpse leaps forward, swinging a massive cleaver down with killing intent. The attacker grins, convinced of victory, until a flash of blue cuts through the purple haze. The cleaver stops mid-air, blocked by an corpse. The silver-haired mage freezes in disbelief, unable to understand when the boy cast a counter. Frost spreads instantly, and the temperature plummets. A surge of energy explodes outward, blasting the attackers back. Horror spreads across their faces as they recognize the magic repelling them. This isn't just necromancy, it's water element magic. The realization that the boy is a dual element mage sends panic through the group. The corpse lunged forward, striking at the body being controlled by Vec. Dale stands untouched amid the debris. In front of him is an undead soldier unlike the others, its body encased in jagged layers of frozen mana. An enemy puppet strikes it, but the blow hit his controlled corpse. Dale looks at them with cold disdain, questioning their audacity to touch his soldiers. He declares their attacks meaningless. The undead has been fortified with impenetrable ice armor. A blinding burst of azure light erupts on impact, debris flying as the arena flashes. Dale remains still as the dust settles, his expression unreadable. Across from him, Velik recoils, pointing and shouting that using water magic violates the duel's rules. Dale stays silent, his blue eyes cold, as the protest continues. From the judge's podium, Eris adjusts her glasses, the glare hiding her eyes. Calmly, Dale states that the rules do not forbid enhancing undead with magic other than darkness. Eris's red eyes gleam as she approves the tactic, silencing the complaint. Humiliated, Velik snarls new orders. He tells his team to ignore the summoned soldiers and target the boy directly, aiming to end the match with a decapitating strike. The undead surge forward in a coordinated swarm, eyes glowing as they close in. Dale studies the advancing mass and quickly realizes his options are gone. With artifacts also banned, improvisation is his only choice. He moves. A rotting hand slashes at his face, but he ducks, claws cutting air. He weaves through the melee, dodging attacks by inches. Then he reaches out and grabs a jagged bone fragment from the battlefield. Pouring dark mana into it, he reinforces the calcium structure. The air distorts as brittle bone hardens into a weapon stronger than steel. Purple energy surges as he strikes. He slashes upward, carving through the undead with ease. Velik and his partner stare in shock as their soldiers collapse, realizing too late that the boy has reforged the bone's density at a molecular level. The largest corpse steps forward and brings its cleaver down in a crushing arc. The boy doesn't retreat. He raises the bone blade and catches the strike in a shower of sparks. The ground cracks beneath him, but the weapon holds. Using the impact, he launches himself into the air. Above the confused corpse, he exhales sharply and unleashes a flurry of strikes. His arm becomes a blur as the reinforced blade flashes in a crisscross pattern, shredding the massive undead into pieces before he even lands. Velik staggers back, sweat pouring down his face as disbelief shatters his composure. He stares at the boy, unable to accept reality. Every undead soldier has fallen to a child, but what truly terrifies him is the boy's movement. A mage should not wield a blade with such lethal fluidity. Dale gives him no time to recover. With a sharp, practiced motion, he slashes through the air, the blade humming as its force sends the man crashing onto the cold stone floor. The opponent scrambles backward, staring up at the approaching child in pure terror. Dale advances calmly, the sword's tip tracing a direct line toward his fallen enemy. His voice breaks as he raises a trembling hand, begging young Master Dale to stop and declaring his surrender. Dale only smiles, his youthful innocence clashing with the cold steel in his grip. He tells him to come on, casually reminding him that defeat here does not mean death. Dale swings down without hesitation. Velik screams and shuts his eyes as the strike lands into his necklace, ending the match. The arena announcement thunders overhead. Young Master Dale has cleared the trial alone, retaining 60 life points. The spectators erupt as blue magical light surrounds Dale at the center. Dale lowers his sword, his expression hardening into resolve. He reminds himself to keep watching. This victory is only the beginning. The tower trial immediately advances to the second tier. A massive flesh golem materializes, its mismatched muscles stitched together and pulsing with red energy. The candidate must defeat this guardian. Normally, survivors would join forces to bring it down, but the arena stands empty. Dale faces the giant alone, having eliminated every other participant. The flesh golem roars and slams a massive fist downward. Dale leaps clear effortlessly, his cape trailing as he glides through the air. The restrictions have changed. Magic is now allowed, though artifacts remain banned. Dale needs only his own mana. Dark violet energy crackles around his fingers as he smiles, seeing a chance to test the limits of his third circle magic. When the golem advances again, Dale fires a concentrated beam of purple energy. It strikes the arm and clings to the flesh instead of exploding. The golem hesitates, confused, until the energy pulses and spreads. Dale raises his hand, eyes glowing, and activates accelerated decay. High above, Duke Saxon and heiress observers watch closely. One questions the choice, wondering why the young master would use a rotting spell instead of raw destructive power. Below, the result is immediate and horrific. The golem's arm bubbles and collapses, its flesh melting away like wax. Chunks dissolve into foul sludge before hitting the ground. The golem collapses into liquefied gore. Dale observes calmly. In his previous life, this method was essential against biological threats, biochemical warfare. He pinches his nose at the stench, wondering if the spectators understand that what they're witnessing is a scientific process recreated through black magic. That day becomes historic for the Academy. Dale doesn't just pass. He annihilates the 10th tier, setting a new record and earning 4 full days of rest before the 11th trial. Elsewhere, the mood is grim. Outside the Institute's Gothic halls, students gather in frustrated silence. To recover from the first tier's unprecedented slaughter, the administration authorizes a rare retrial for the remaining 59 participants, an act of mercy Dale does not need. Night falls over the Academy grounds. By the glowing fountain, Dale stands alone, watching the water shimmer in the moonlight. Master Sophia approaches, her expression warm as she praises his outstanding performance. Dale bows and credits everything to her teachings, which only deepens her smile. Dale then turns serious and formally asks if she would like to go on a date. Sophia freezes, stunned and flustered as she asks him to repeat himself. Oblivious to the romantic weight of his words, Dale points toward the town and explains that a city festival is underway, insisting they should go. Scratching her cheek in awkward resignation, Sophia agrees. Dale cheers, while Sophia watches him, convinced he misunderstands what a date means, yet wondering if his innocence hides something deeper. The Necropolis City Festival bursts with life. Crowded streets echo with laughter as revelers raise wooden tankards beneath glowing lanterns. Fireworks bloom overhead, lighting up the night sky. Dale and Sophia cross a stone bridge away from the densest crowds. Sophia suggests he must be exhausted after the trial, but Dale casually dismisses it, saying he has plenty of time to recover before the next round. Their conversation fades into a comfortable silence. The full moon hangs brightly above the rooftops. Sophia remarks on its beauty, and Dale quietly agrees. He notices the conversation no longer flows as easily as before, yet the silence feels natural. Watching Sophia adjust her hair in the moonlight, he realizes how deeply he wants to grow closer to her, knowing she believed in him from the very beginning. His thoughts drift back to a few days earlier, to the moment he reached his third circle. Alone in a training room filled with blue aura, he finally understood Sophia's teaching about confronting the inner world. He remembers blood dripping from his nose as he forced his mana beyond its limits, pushing past the second circle while rampaging energy tore through his circuits. As the magical rings flared with blinding light, something unexpected appeared. In that memory, swirling mana is violently disrupted as a pitch-black sword suddenly manifests, piercing through the energy and stabbing directly into his chest. Dale finds himself standing in a raging blizzard, icy winds cutting through his clothes. Surrounded by endless white, he realizes this is not the physical world, but his inner world, the world of realization. Jagged ice rises from the cracked ground, forming a barren, empty realm that once held nothing. Blue energy flickers across his palm, lighting the void. Yet the emptiness begins to fade as the memory of the person who brought light into his life surfaces, replacing the cold with the warmth of a bustling night market. The scenery shifts under glowing street lamps and an indigo sky. Dale looks up at Master Sophia, now the center of his world, and decides to close the distance between them. He openly tells her that he likes her. Sophia freezes in shock, unable to process the confession. Dale smiles and repeats his words without hesitation. Her surprise softens into a gentle blush as she pulls him into a tight embrace and admits she likes him very much too. Dale returns the hug, thanking her, and under the quiet moonlight, reflects that living life a second time truly has its advantages, even if his current body is still small. A few days later, that warm memory gives way to the towering magic tower. Dale stands in the 11th tier's trial grounds and lets out a heavy sigh. Despite his bold confession, his relationship with Sophia hasn't changed at all. He suspects she brushed it off as nothing more than a child's innocent crush. Shaking his head, Dale pushes those thoughts aside. Romance can wait. The exam cannot. Eris declares the trial will be a one-on-one magic duel. Dale steps forward to face his opponent, Albert Rosenheim, a tall, arrogant third circle master. Albert grips a dark grimoire as purple energy coils around his fingers. He greets Dale with false politeness, then openly warns that he won't hold back against a child. Under 11th tier rules, all artifacts and tactics are allowed, meaning Dale's safety necklace offers no guarantee of survival. Dale responds with a calm smile, a sharp glint flashing in his blue eyes. With the restrictions lifted, there's no reason to hold back. He resolves to crush Albert completely and prove the overwhelming gap in their power. The duel begins instantly as Albert unleashes a blast of violet magic that lights up the arena. Laughing wildly, he opens his grimoire and declares he's nothing like the rookies Dale has faced before. A massive magic circle forms, and with a shout, Albert casts dark arrows. Dozens of purple bolts rain from the sky, forcing Dale to leap back and dodge through the relentless assault. Dale narrows his eyes as the magical pressure intensifies. Albert hovers amid swirling violet energy, a huge sphere of crackling power forming above him. Confident, the mage taunts Dale, declaring his streak ends here, and releases another devastating barrage. Dale moves in a blur, weaving through the attacks as beams tear apart the arena floor and shockwaves whip his cloak. Landing in a crouch, Dale feels annoyance rather than fear. He realizes Albert launched that spell before the official start signal, a clear violation. He looks toward the judge's box, where an elderly bearded man and a younger observer sit silently, making no move to intervene. With no signal to stop the duel, Dale understands they want to see his true strength. This is pure meritocracy. Another volley rains down, forcing him back into motion. Sidestepping a bolt that scorches the ground, Dale mutters under his breath that this is why he hates mages. Sensing his advantage, Albert throws his head back in manic laughter and raises his grimoire, runes blazing brighter. He theatrically commands his creations to rise, chanting an overdramatic incantation. Dark purple energy gathers on the ground, forming hulking, faceless humanoid constructs. Dale stops and stares, unimpressed. A bead of sweat rolls down his temple, not from fear, but from secondhand embarrassment at the ridiculous chant. He silently wonders where the mage learned something so cringeworthy. Even so, the danger is real. Dale acknowledges that Albert is stronger than an average rookie. The shadow constructs charge. One swings a massive greytax with crushing force. Dale waits until the final instant before leaping back as the axe smashes into the stone floor, sending violent shockwaves and purple sparks across the arena. The mage screams in frustration, demanding to know how long Dale plans to keep dodging and mocking him for trying to win without attacking. The magical constructs press in, their limbs stretching like whips as weapons slice through the air. Dale moves with precise control, evading heavy strikes and parrying weaker ones. Suddenly, the mage springs his trap. The surrounding constructs freeze, swell, and bubble with unstable mana. With a sneer, the mage activates Death Explosion. All the constructs detonate at once, unleashing a violent surge of violet fire that engulfs Dale's position. Smoke and magical residue erupt into the air, and the arena trembles from the blast. Convinced of victory, the mage closes his grimoire and declares himself the winner, expecting to see Dale's broken body. When the smoke clears, the crater is empty. The mage panics, spinning around in disbelief. A calm voice mocks him for cheating against a child, echoing from all directions. As fear sets in, a shadow stirs behind the mage. From within his own shadow, dark liquid energy rises and forms into Dale, completely unharmed. Dale remarks that the mage looks shaken, his body radiating a far darker and more controlled power than before. Dale admits the ambush was clever, but insufficient. His eyes glow violet as Wraith transformation activates. The shadows at his feet twist and come alive, whispering with hunger as they claw at the mage's purple aura. Shadowy hands seize the mage while the darkness behind Dale condenses into a massive, jagged maw with glowing violet eyes, drooling with abyssal hunger. Dale casually urges the entity to eat, warning it not to overdo it. The shadow surges forward and swallows the mage instantly. He has no time to defend as his screams are cut off. The impact cracks the stone floor and sends shockwaves through the arena, while the darkness thrashes violently. At Dale's command, the shadows disperse, dropping the unconscious mage onto the floor, completely drained beside his fallen spellbook. A spinning magic circle around Dale's hand confirms his overwhelming victory, and the announcer declares Dale the winner of the first round. Dale casually dusts off his cloak and smiles, asking who wants to face him next. The remaining students recoil in terror. One contestant immediately surrenders, admitting he just wants to survive. From that point on, no one dares challenge Dale. Every remaining match ends in a default victory as fear spreads through the ranks. With no opposition left, Dale advances through the magic tower. Under the crimson sky, he climbs the Gothic structure, refining his 3 magic circles as he goes. Tier after tier falls with ease as shadow wolves and skeletal wraiths emerge from the darkness, only to be effortlessly destroyed by Dale as he ascends higher into the tower. By the 20th tier, the atmosphere changes. The air turns heavy and metallic as a true opponent emerges. A headless knight. A Dullahan clad in obsidian armor, mounted on a spectral steed. Crimson blood billow from its severed neck as it raises a massive lance, its presence overwhelming the arena. Dale stands calmly beneath it, unfazed. From the observation balcony, spectators whisper in awe, recognizing the knight as a creation of a tower elder. One woman remarks that this guardian may represent the limit of Dale's ascent. Dale, however, looks amused. He comments that things would be boring if they always went as expected, raising a hand wreathed in violet smoke as the darkness behind him awakens. Suddenly, the battle takes an impossible turn. Instead of attacking, the headless knight dismounts and kneels, driving its great sword into the floor in absolute submission. It bows before Dale. Without striking a single blow, Dale has forced the guardian to pledge loyalty. A single command follows: end yourself. The knight obeys instantly, reversing its grip and impaling itself through the chest. Its energy disperses as it collapses, kneeling in a final display of devotion. Dale stares in mild surprise, briefly wondering if he pushed his authority too far. The judges and spectators remain frozen in shock, realizing this was not just a victory. Dale didn't defeat the Guardian, he seized control of it, a feat placing him on the same level as the Tower Elders themselves. Satisfied, Dale turns away. Ignoring the crowd's confusion, he leaves through the exit gates, knowing the next floor holds horrors, even monsters' fear. He refuses to cross that line and departs as light swallows his silhouette. Outside the magic tower, sunlight glints off its massive structure as the magic tower master arrives. Mages, nobles, and elders bow in perfect unison. Dale walks beside his father, his small frame contrasted by the immense respect surrounding them. His performance has done more than clear a trial. It has begun unifying the northern territories under their rule. The scene shifts to the frozen lands of the Saxon dukedom. In a brutal clash, armored knights slaughter green-skinned orcs, blood staining the snow as battle cries ring out for House Saxon and their young commander. Dale leads the orc horde extermination squad from the front. Though only 10 years old, he commands veteran warriors with absolute authority, his presence driving the massacre forward. Later, the battlefield gives way to a quiet office. An orc's severed head drops onto the floor as Dale reports to Duke Saxon. He calmly states that 145 enemies were killed, with only 3 minor injuries on their side. When asked if magic was used to protect the troops, Dale answers immediately and firmly, no magic was involved. Duke Saxon's expression softens into a satisfied smile as he grasps the situation. Dale declares that everything was achieved solely by the swords of House Saxon. Then Duke Saxon turns his violet gaze to the boy and praises Dale directly. Dale accepts the compliment with calm confidence, the blue gem at his throat glinting as the adults discuss his progress. Sir Helmet proudly steps in, noting that Dale is already comfortable commanding large cavalry units. Laughing, Helmet pats near the boy's shoulder. Dale smiles and humbly credits Helmet's teachings. He reflects on the knight's training in swordsmanship, tactics, and military strategy, recalling long hours spent studying maps and strategy boards. Helmet jokes that at this pace, Dale will soon be leading full territorial wars. The idea stirs something sharp and eager within Dale. He silently welcomes the thought of a new stage. The scene abruptly shifts to the training grounds as Charlotte lunges forward with a fierce rapier thrust. Dale calmly meets her attack. Their blades collide, sparks flying as metal rings through the cold air. Charlotte presses relentlessly, striking high and low in rapid succession. Dale parries every blow with minimal movement, deflecting even her strongest slash without losing balance. He creates distance with a smooth motion. Charlotte pulls back, breathing hard, frustration clear in her eyes. Dale notes that she has improved. Charlotte admits she cannot compare to him and sheathes her rapier, pointing out that he is already a third-circle mage and cleared the tower's 20th tier. She turns away, annoyed that everyone constantly praises him. Dale calmly tells her she will grow stronger too. Charlotte blushes, clutching her hand, while Dale internally acknowledges her exceptional talent for a 10-year-old. She snaps at him for treating her like a child. Dale bluntly tells her she is one. She fires back that he is too. Dale smirks and boldly claims he is already an adult. Charlotte stares at him in disbelief, then gives up and moves on. The scene returns to the study. Silence fills the room as a chess piece lands firmly on a large map. Sir Helmet announces the day's lesson, the hammer and anvil tactic. Dale watches closely as Helmet explains how cavalry on the flanks break through the enemy wings and encircle them, while infantry in the center blocks the enemy's advance. Dale immediately understands. Helmet explains that the tactic is named after the act of crushing iron on an anvil and emphasizes that it relies heavily on cavalry. Dale notes that such a strategy is only possible because of the northern forces known as the Black Cavalry. As he considers the board, Dale realizes that the principles of war remain unchanged across worlds. Then, shifting the topic, he asks Helmet about Charlotte's training. Sir Helmet strokes his beard, his expression settling into thoughtful pride. He admits that while Charlotte cannot yet compare to Dale, her growth is exceptional. She has already formed a solid foundation in swordsmanship and will soon formally inherit House Saxon's aura cultivation and sword arts. Dale, however, remains uneasy. He voices the real concern: Charlotte's compatibility with their sword style. In this world, power is divided between arcane and martial paths. Mages refine mana through circles in their hearts, while knights forge aura through physical cultivation and inherited sword arts. Dale recalls the northern forces, especially the Black Cavalry, whose power resembles unstoppable war chariots. House Saxon's Knight Crow Knight Order does not rely on finesse. Their heavily armored knights wield massive greatswords, overwhelming enemies through sheer brute force. Charlotte's style directly contradicts this. Her natural technique favors speed and fluidity. On the training grounds, she moves like the wind, striking with lightning-fast precision. She wields a rapier, and her aura flows freely in green ribbons rather than forming a heavy presence. Dale coldly concludes that while her talent might allow her to reach the lower ranks of the 7 swordmasters, she will never become the first sword. That title once belonged to her father, a legendary master of the Sword of Blossom, a beautiful and deadly style said to scatter like petals in the wind. Dale quietly laments the loss of that sword art. It vanished with the fall of the Knight Nation, leaving Charlotte with a legacy she resembles in spirit but cannot inherit in battle. Dale studies the Black Knight chess piece, wondering if such a legendary art could truly be gone forever. Afterward, Dale's life becomes a relentless cycle of study and monster subjugation. His reputation within the territory steadily grows as he sharpens his skills, preparing for the conflicts that inevitably surround nobility. That reckoning arrives in an unexpected way. In the grand audience chamber, Duke Saxon sits upon his throne, his expression twisted with disbelief and anger. A trembling messenger reports shocking news. Baron Parker of a neighboring territory has declared a territorial war, claiming ownership of one of their copper mines. The move makes no sense. A mere baron challenging a higher-ranking noble is suicidal, unless he is backed by someone else. As Duke Saxon considers refusing the claim, the messenger reveals the truth. Count Brandenburg has sided with the Baron and sent a letter offering support. He intends to dispatch the Knight Order of St. Magdalena in exchange for a share of the mine's profits. The situation becomes clear to Dale. This is not business. It is revenge. The Count still harbors resentment over the humiliation he once suffered at the hands of Duke Saxon. Lacking the courage to challenge the Duke directly, he has chosen a cowardly proxy war along the border. A dark smirk forms on Dale's face as he recognizes the Count's intent. If the enemy plans to fight from the shadows, Dale is more than willing to respond in kind. Standing before his father, Dale places a hand over his chest and confidently requests permission to personally command the upcoming battle alongside the Knights of House Saxon. The Duke refuses immediately, his tone firm and uncompromising. He tells his son it is far too early for a child to bear the weight of war and warns him not to speak recklessly. A battle against human soldiers, he insists, is nothing like hunting monsters. Turning away, the Duke reassures Baron Greenbelt that he will personally protect the mine. Dale steps back in shock, murmuring a quiet thanks that goes unnoticed. Outside the hall, his frustration spills over. He clenches his fists, knowing his own abilities yet resenting that his father sees only his age. Helmet offers comfort, advising him not to take the Duke's words too personally and suggesting that the Duke must have his reasons. To lighten the mood, Helmet pulls out a wooden board game he prepared, proposing they pass the time learning strategy. The moment Dale sees the checkered grid, His eyes widen. It is chess. Though it carries a different name in this world, he instantly recognizes it as a war game. Memories from a past life surface as he stares at the board. Helmet explains that while the rules are complex, mastering the game sharpens one's understanding of warfare and suggests they analyze battles while playing. Inspiration strikes Dale. Grabbing the board, he bolts back toward the hall, shouting that he has found the answer, leaving Helmet scrambling after him in confusion. He storms back into Duke Saxon's presence and slams the board onto the table. When the Duke questions his interruption, Dale confidently proposes a wager. If he defeats his father in this strategy game, he wants permission to join the territorial war. The Duke questions his stubbornness, but Dale calmly replies that he now understands war is a battle of minds, not just strength, and asks to be judged through a single match. Helmet rushes in to apologize, but the Duke stops him. Intrigued, he accepts the challenge. If the boy wins, his request will be granted. But if he loses, he must abandon any thought of participating in the battle. The match ends with a black pawn striking the board. Dale calmly declares his victory. Helmet stands frozen in disbelief. Despite deliberately handicapping himself by giving Dale superior numbers and terrain, the Duke has still lost 2 out of 3 games. Leaning back with a sharp smile, Dale reminds his father of their wager. The Duke sighs heavily, questioning how a child could master such a game. Dale casually claims he studied a rulebook he once found in the library, hiding the truth behind a convenient excuse. True to his word, the Duke straightens and formally grants Dale full command of the knights in the upcoming battle. Shock ripples through the room as Helmet stammers in disbelief. The Duke ignores him and fixes Dale with a stern gaze, warning that the honor of House Saxon now rests on his shoulders, and failure will not be tolerated. The Duke tests Dale one last time, demanding to know if he is truly ready to bear the full weight of the war alone. Without hesitation, Dale places a hand on his chest, smiles, and asks for his father's trust, vowing to prove himself. Seeing the resolve in his eyes, the Duke's stern expression softens into a faint smirk. He gives his final order: validate everything Dale has built so far and return with a victory. The scene shifts to Malberg, the moonlit stronghold of House Brandenburg. Inside its lavish halls, Count Brandenburg explodes in rage, screaming at his eldest son, Philip, for wasting his days drunk in the slums instead of preparing for war. He reveals alarming rumors that the young heir of House Saxon will personally lead their enemies' knights. Philip, drunk and clutching a wine bottle, laughs it off. He mocks the idea of fearing a 10-year-old and arrogantly asks permission to crush the brat himself with their knights. The Count responds with violence. Towering over his son, the Count roars that the so-called brat is a monster whose potential Philip could never match, even in 100 years. He looks down at Philip with pure contempt, comparing him to a worthless insect. A fleeting memory of Charlotte crosses his mind before he returns to the present crisis. The Count declares that Philip will accompany the knights, prompting the fallen son to beam with pride, until the Count coldly clarifies the truth. Philip is not there to lead. His only role is to stand there and look pretty. The title may be his, but real command will belong to Sir Milva's. Philip's face turns pale with panic as he realizes he is nothing more than a figurehead. Before he can protest, Sir Milva steps forward, seizes Philip by the shoulders, and drags him out of the hall. Philip collapses to his knees, scraping across the carpet as he screams for his father, who never looks back. Grinding his teeth, the Count finally understands the trap. Duke Saxon has sent a child to the battlefield, a move that binds his hands. If he responds with full force, he will be labeled a monster. He curses Saxon's cunning, realizing the humiliation was planned from the start. Days later, sunlight shines over Baron Greenbelt's territory, doing nothing to ease the Baron's anxiety. As the gates open, armored reinforcements ride in, led by Dale. The Baron bows deeply and greets young Master Dale of House Saxon. Dale smiles politely and thanks him for the welcome. Behind the formalities, the garrison soldiers whisper among themselves, doubting the boy's age and wondering if he can even lift a sword. They cling to rumors of his prodigy talent, though a red-haired knight remains unconvinced. Baron Greenbelt forces a laugh and praises Dale's presence, but internally he panics, unable to believe the capital sent a 10-year-old to command the defense, even with the elite black cavalry at his side. Hoping to delay any talk of battle, he invites Dale inside for a banquet. Dale cuts him off. There is no time. Before the Baron can react, Dale moves in a blur. In an instant, he closes the distance, draws his short sword, and presses the cold blade against the Baron's throat. The Baron freezes, a terrified squeak escaping him as he stares at the steel resting against his skin. Dale keeps his innocent smile, but his eyes turn sharp and calculating. Ignoring the Baron's terror, he calmly states that he wants to inspect the troops immediately. He asks a simple question. Among all the soldiers present, who is the strongest? When the Baron freezes and fails to answer, Dale repeats the question. his gaze sweeping across the assembled knights. "It's me, young master." The red-haired knight steps forward, thumbing his chest with arrogant pride. He grins down at Dale and scoffs, declaring that no one capable of defeating him has ever been born. He mocks Dale as a spoiled brat playing soldier with a bought title and promises to put him in his place. Dale remains unfazed. He steps away from the Baron and twirls his sword with effortless precision. The Baron recoils in fear, but Dale handles the weapon like a seasoned master. He addresses the knights, openly acknowledging their doubt. They question him because of his age and the suddenness of his command. Without warning, Dale slams his sword straight into the stone ground. The blade crunches deep into the cobblestones as sparks fly. The display instantly silences the whispers. Dale lifts his head, his eyes dark and dangerous, and says the fastest way to resolve their doubts is with steel. He grins and looks directly at the red-haired knight, pointing out the irony that their so-called strongest warrior is swaying on his feet, drunk while on duty. He says he doesn't need further inspection. The knight's condition already proves the state of this army. Dale sneers and asks if alcohol is what gave Harbuck such confidence. Harbuck accepts the challenge. He draws his sword smoothly, declaring that he will test the young master's strength with his own honor as a knight. Dale only smirks, his blue eyes calm and amused. He asks if Harbuck has heard of his sword. Harbuck replies that he has heard plenty about the strange weapon, though he silently questions the source of the boy's confidence. Brushing the doubt aside, he roars and charges. Harbuck leaps from higher ground, sliding down to turn gravity into lethal momentum. His sword crashes downward, meant to crush a novice defense. Dale meets the strike casually. His blade rises, and the impact stops Harbuck instantly. Harbuck's eyes widen in shock as his full-powered attack is effortlessly blocked. Recovering, Harbuck unleashes a furious barrage of slashes. Sparks scatter as their blades clash, but every strike is blocked. Growing frustrated, Harbuck shouts and tries to overpower Dale through sheer aggression. As they clash, he analyzes the boy's weapon and notices the absence of a visible aura blade. Assuming the boy is relying on raw physical strength, he decides to use his full power to end the fight. The battle shifts suddenly. Dale steps back and raises his left hand. A complex purple magic circle forms in the air, spinning with arcane energy. Dark shadows burst from the ground behind him, wrapping around his body like a living cloak. Harbuck staggers back in horror, demanding to know what kind of power this is. The shadows lash out, forcing Harbuck into defense. He slashes and parries desperately, sweat pouring down his face as the attacks continue without pattern. He convinces himself this must be some troublesome artifact disrupting his focus. Dale watches coldly, unimpressed, noting that the knight's actual skill doesn't match his arrogance. He reaches through the magic circle, preparing another move, when Harbuck suddenly cries out and collapses to the ground. The duel ends without a finishing strike. The Baron rushes forward, catching Harbuck as he falls and shouting his name. Dale lowers his sword, blinking in genuine confusion. He stares at the unconscious knight, clearly baffled that the man collapsed without even taking a direct hit. Baron Greenbelt turns pale, sweat streaming down his face as he looks at the aftermath. He grabs his fallen knight's shoulder, his voice shaking with fear and anger. He demands to know what Dale has done, accusing him of crippling their defenses on the eve of battle. Unable to understand why Dale would strike down an ally so easily, Dale looks completely bored, standing with his sword hanging loosely at his side, his expression cold and unimpressed. Ignoring the Baron's hysteria, he bluntly states that if this injured man is truly their strongest warrior, then the Greenbelt forces are nothing but a liability. Speaking with the authority of a seasoned commander in a child's body, he scolds the Baron for planning to hide behind House Saxon, while abandoning his own military responsibilities. The Baron can only stammer in silence as the weight of Dale's words sinks in. Cracking his neck, Dale finalizes his takeover. He gestures at the wounded knight, openly questioning the legitimacy of his title, then declares that until the real battle begins, the knights of the Saxon Duchy will serve as the blade protecting this territory. Stepping forward, Dale's presence overwhelms the field despite his small frame. Behind him, the disciplined Saxon army stands in perfect order, a sharp contrast to the disorganized Greenbelt troops. He delivers a merciless ultimatum: follow him, or lose the land beneath their feet. With no room for negotiation, and faced with the vast gap in power and Dale's terrifying resolve, the Greenbelt knights submit. Armor crashes to the ground as they kneel in unison, bowing their heads and swearing loyalty to the young master. That night, the scene shifts to the quiet, suffocating luxury of the Saxon estate. In a dim room, Elena weeps softly, her body trembling with fear and sorrow. Duke Saxon places a hand on her shoulder, offering comfort without genuine warmth. He tells her there is nothing to fear, speaking of Dale not as a child, but as a weapon meant to be sharpened. A dark smile spreads across his face as he predicts a future where their son witnesses unimaginable sights and eventually rules the world. Elsewhere, Dale sits alone in his quarters, clutching his head in frustration. His father's grand ambitions mean nothing to him. Instead, he fumes over his own disappointment, realizing he lived like a frog in a well, only to discover that the so-called experts outside are utterly incompetent. He now understands why the Holy Swordsman intervened here, not out of respect, but necessity, knowing the Greenbelt forces were useless. A smirk forms as irritation turns into calculation. If everyone else is worthless, he will simply carry out his own plans. The next day, sunlight floods the castle grounds as brutal training begins. The red-haired knight, wrapped in bandages and barely breathing, struggles against thick ropes tied to a massive boulder. He begs for mercy before collapsing onto the grass. Dale watches calmly from a cushioned chair beneath a red parasol, his guards standing nearby. Showing no sympathy, he orders the knight to stand, mocking his status as a knight of the north. When the man complains about his injuries, Dale dismisses it coldly, noting that the training has not even truly begun. Dale then issues his command. Sir Bale is ordered to train Baron Greenbelt's knights, starting with stamina training, declaring them all completely unqualified. With internal matters settled, Dale turns his focus to the wider war. He orders that an envoy be sent to Baron Parker's territory to propose negotiations. Bale hesitates, confused by the sudden shift. Dale clarifies that he has no intention of accepting a humiliating peace. There is simply someone he wants to see before the battle begins. The meeting is arranged at the border between the two baronies, on neutral ground beneath a large white pavilion guarded by soldiers from both sides. Inside, only a wooden table and a few chairs await. Dale sits calmly, fingers interlocked, already mapping out the coming war. He knows the Knight Order of St. Magdalena is marching across the continent. With their supply lines strained, they are likely to launch a preemptive strike to secure resources. Time is limited to a few weeks at most. Baron Parker's knightly forces are also formidable. This meeting is not about peace. It is a calculated probe before the real fighting begins. A guard announces Lord Philip's arrival as the tent flap opens and two men step inside. Dale watches with a satisfied smile. Exactly who he expected. At the front is Lord Philip, a blonde noble dressed in polished, decorative armor, carrying himself with hollow arrogance. Behind him stands a stern man with slicked-back hair and a heavy dark cloak. To Dale, Philip is nothing more than a wrapped-up figurehead, a commander in name only. His attention immediately locks onto the man behind him, the true authority of this battlefield, Sir Milva's, the pure sword. Dale greets Philip politely, but Philip skips all courtesies. He drops into the chair opposite Dale and mocks him, laughing and sneering that the boy must be scared now that a real war is approaching. Dale doesn't react, he simply smiles. Calmly, Dale asks why Philip agreed to the negotiations. Philip scoffs and begins to answer, but Dale cuts him off coldly, stating he wasn't asking him at all. Philip freezes in shock. Ignoring Philip completely, Dale addresses Sir Milva's directly, exposing him as the real commander hiding behind a puppet. The atmosphere in the tent shatters. His composure cracks, and Philip turns red with humiliation. Dale presses further, questioning why a holy swordsman would entrust an entire battlefield to someone so blatantly incompetent. Philip trembles with rage as Milva's urgently warns him not to fall for the provocation, but the damage is done. Dale delivers the final strike to Philip's pride, asking how it feels to know that his own father has no trust in him. Milva's abruptly declares the negotiations over and orders an immediate withdrawal. Dale, still seated and unfazed, shuts him down with a chilling question, asking whether Philip even needs permission to speak. He mocks Philip for bowing his head to someone beneath him, calling it the behavior of a slave. Dale goes further, ridiculing Philip's status as a count's heir and likening their relationship to a dog placing a leash on its master. The insult detonates. Philip snaps, silencing Milva's with explosive fury. Dale leans back casually, fingers laced behind his head, and mocks them both, stating he can't tell whether Philip is the holy swordsman's puppet or Milvas's puppet. As Milvas realizes the trap has fully closed, Dale internally confirms his strategy. He never intended to negotiate. His goal was to destroy their chain of command. Dale then orders Bale to step outside. He obeys immediately, leaving the tent sealed for a private exchange. Dale invites Philip to speak alone, appealing to his ego as one of the true commanders of the battlefield. The bait works. Philip agrees, ordering Milvas to leave at once. Milvas panics and tries to protest, but Philip roars over him, asserting his authority and demanding obedience as the highest-ranking commander. Philip arrogantly declares that dealing with the brat from House Saxon is his responsibility. Milvas immediately realizes the battle is already lost. Glancing at the quietly seated Dale, he understands the commander has completely fallen into the trap. With no options left, Milvas bows his head and obeys. Once the tent closes, the mood shifts. Dale leans forward, dropping his mockery and adopting a calm, businesslike tone. He thanks Lord Philip and reiterates that the meeting was meant purely for negotiations. Philip, barely restraining his anger, asks if Dale truly believes he has something persuasive to offer. Dale answers plainly, if the Knight Order of St. Magdalena withdraws immediately, House Saxon will supply everything needed for their army's return. The offer enrages Philip. He slams the table, furious that this is being called a negotiation. Dale remains unfazed and confirms that it is. The tent fills with tense politeness. Philip stands and Dale apologizes for earlier words while issuing a clear threat. He demands a withdrawal, warning that otherwise Philip's army will be destroyed, hundreds of knights captured, and the holy swordsman's reputation ruined. His blue eyes sharpen, and he smiles faintly with pity. Dale calmly tells him this is his final chance to retain even a shred of dignity. Philip's composure finally cracks. Laughing nervously, he accuses Dale of mocking them from the beginning. Dale's smile turns dark. He clasps his hands, rests his chin on them, and tells him this was his last chance. Shocked by the boy's audacity, Philip demands to know what he said. Dale leans back and asks if he truly isn't afraid. When the battle is lost, the blame will not fall on Sir Milva's, but on the incompetent, useless firstborn of a count. The words strike deeply. Philip's face twists with rage as he shouts in denial, slams the table, and storms away, vowing to prove himself. Dale watches him leave with a serene, chilling smile and tells him to keep that confidence for as long as he can. The negotiations are over. Soon after, at the Greenbelt Barony, urgency replaces diplomacy. On the castle ramparts, knights observe the battlefield through a monocular. Milvas asks for a report and is told that House Saxon's forces have begun mobilizing. Gripping his sword, Milvas recalls the meeting. The boy's eyes, his composure, and the oppressive presence he radiated were nothing like a beginner's. Despite being only 10, he was not someone to underestimate. Still, Philip sees this as their chance. While Dale is still just a child, they will cut him down and end his growth. Drawing his sword, Milvas raises it before his troops and declares they will teach the loud-mouthed brat the meaning of silence. Across the field, the Saxon camp erupts into motion. A red-haired knight rushes to Dale, now mounted on a white warhorse and clad in black armor adorned with purple gems, reporting that the enemy's main forces are advancing. Dale smiles with anticipation, praises the report, and draws his sword in one smooth motion. Raising it toward the gray sky, he addresses his army. He calls upon the swords of House Saxon, declaring that their time has come, and orders them to spill blood worthy of their name. A thunderous cheer erupts as the black-armored soldiers raise their weapons, their morale surging as their young lord leads them into battle. The war horn sounds, its deep cry signaling the beginning of battle. Both armies surge forward like crashing waves. The collision is immediate and brutal. Lances shatter, swords cut into flesh, and the front lines collapse into chaos. Milvas charges into the melee with his lance lowered as soldiers scream and fall around him. Blood sprays as the first lives are claimed by the momentum of the charge. "First Cavalry Battalion, advance!" The order rings out as the commander spurs his warhorse forward, his crimson cloak snapping behind him. Even as he charges, his mind works coldly through the battlefield. The key threat is clear: the Nightcrow Knight Order of House Saxon. Their power is unknown, and leaving them unchecked could doom the entire army. To counter this, the formation has been carefully arranged. Lord Philip is held safely in the center to stabilize the line. Baron Parker's forces are stationed on the left wing to lock down the Greenbelt Knight Order. With the enemy restrained, Milvas plans to strike decisively. Leading Count Brandenburg's elite troops, he will smash into the Nightcrow Knights from the flank, relying on speed and overwhelming force. "We must not miss this chance," he roars, lowering his lance. The impact is violent. Steel grinds against steel, dust and blood filling the air. On the edge of the clash, a red-haired knight barely deflects a crushing blow and shouts a warning about the danger. A knight lunged at them, screaming in the name of the county as he lunges forward. The response is devastating. A crushing force slams into him, nearly knocking his horse to the ground. The battlefield lurches unpredictably as Saxon knights push back with brutal strength. The two knights retreat into a brief opening, gasping for breath, stunned by how close they came to death. Then the tide shifts. A surge of energy ripples through the Saxon ranks as a new figure rides into view on a proud warhorse. "It's young Master Dale!" a soldier cries. "Young Master Dale is on the front lines." Dale raises his sword, his small frame radiating overwhelming authority. His blue eyes burn with resolve as he shouts for his army to stand firm and fight to the end. Calling out the name of House Saxon, he charges directly into battle, his black armor gleaming as he leads from the front. From a distance, Milvas slows his horse, watching with sharp interest. He immediately understands the move. Dale is not avoiding him. He is forcing a direct clash. By stepping into the vanguard, the boy has made himself the bait. Milvas smirks, acknowledging the courage behind the gamble. Dale is no ordinary child, and that realization sharpens his focus. "This is exactly what I wanted." Dark energy begins to vibrate across the battlefield. The Knight Order of St. Magdalena and Count Brandenburg's forces roar and surge forward. In response, a scarred Saxon lieutenant wrapped in swirling purple energy shouts a desperate command for the entire army to protect their lord and charge. The earth trembles as both cavalry forces rush toward each other. Violet energy erupts around the Saxon knights, forming a storm of dark power. Without hesitation, Milvas plunges straight into it. "We'll end this swiftly," he shouts. "First Cavalry Battalion, follow me. We defeat Dale here and end the war." He roars another command, demanding his elites prove their worth. His blade flashes as he cuts down an enemy, the impact rattling armor and bone. Without slowing, he swings his lance in a wide arc, tearing through the chaos as he drives deeper into the heart of the battle. As enemy soldiers are driven back, a sense of unease creeps into Milvas's mind. The resistance is too weak. The opposing lines collapse with suspicious ease, and the infamous Nightcrow Knight Order, feared as the Black Cavalry, falls far faster than expected. Across the field, Saxon forces shout for a retreat, their withdrawal almost theatrical. The rhythm of the battle feels wrong. Before he can process it, a messenger races in from the flank with urgent news. Baron Parker's left wing is being completely overrun. Milvas freezes in disbelief. Far away, the truth is already unfolding. The left wing is being slaughtered. Knights scream as they are cut down, and at the center of the carnage, a red-haired warrior wrapped in violent dark energy tears through the defenses. These are not ordinary troops. They are Aura Knights. Another report confirms it. House Saxon's Aura Knights have broken through, and the left wing is begging for reinforcements. Philip stares at his trembling hands, panic tightening around his throat. The realization hits hard. Their true strength was never in retreat. It was concentrated elsewhere. The mistake is fatal. If this battle is lost, the blame will fall entirely on him, the useless firstborn of a count. In his mind, he sees Dale's smug smile, mocking his failure. Fury overtakes reason. Philip snarls that he will not allow the brat's plan to succeed. When a messenger relays Sir Milvas's recommendation to reinforce the left wing by merging the center and rear cavalry, Philip explodes. He silences the advice and makes a reckless decision. All rear cavalry are to follow him instead. He will strike the right wing and kill Dale himself before the left collapses. Then comes another shock. A soldier reports that Philip is already bringing the entire rear cavalry toward them. Milvas goes pale. He clutches his face in disbelief, cursing Philip for ignoring orders. In his mind, the battlefield turns into a chessboard. The right wing is already crowded and pushing forward. Adding more troops will only jam their movement, destroying coordination and turning momentum into chaos. Consumed by obsession, Milvas fixates on a single goal: killing the enemy leader. He ignores desperate pleas from his subordinates and shuts out the reality unfolding on his flanks. In his vision, the white pieces fall one by one, signaling the collapse of the left wing and inevitable encirclement. His officers beg for retreat, panic thick in their voices. He refuses. Across the field, Dale watches calmly. Dale smiles, his blue eyes filled with quiet confidence, as if the battle is already decided. That expression stabs straight into the commander's pride. Raising his longsword, Milvas addresses the 1st Cavalry Battalion. He declares that only one path remains. The soldiers respond desperately, clinging to his command. They pray to Saint Magdalena and Goddess Sistina, asking for their swords to be blessed and for divine protection, bracing themselves for the final order as faith replaces certainty. The commander's eyes snap open, glowing red with manic fury. He roars an order to break through the enemy lines and take the enemy commander's head. With swords raised, the battalion charges, war cries echoing as hooves thunder across the field. Dust rises as they race toward the lone boy waiting calmly in their path. Dale watches the cavalry approach with a faint smirk, noting they are finally matching his pace. He understands battlefield psychology well. On the front lines, pressure and anxiety narrow a commander's vision until only the target remains. Even Sir Milvas has fallen into this fatal tunnel vision. As the cavalry closes in, Dale raises his hand. Blue energy gathers, forming a translucent ice bow. Sir Milvas stares in disbelief, muttering, "Magic." The boy draws the frozen string, an arrow of concentrated frost forming in his grip. With a taunting grin, he asks if this is their first time seeing magic, then releases it. The ice projectile tears through the air and slams into the lead cavalry like a siege weapon, shattering armor and bone in a violent burst of cold. The impact shakes the ground. Milvas was staring upward in disbelief. Executing such precise magic while riding at full speed should be impossible. Above him, Dale advances effortlessly, blue mana flickering around his fingers. Milvas remarks that while their magical power is impressive, they lack the mounted combat skill to use it properly. With a casual command, Dale summons a wall of ice. Jagged blue glaciers erupt from the earth, ripping through the battlefield and forming an impenetrable barrier. Milvas watches in horror as his path is completely cut off. Seizing the moment, Dale orders a counterattack. His forces surge forward unchecked. Realizing that Dale is exposed, the knights panic, throwing themselves in front of charging lances as living shields in an attempt to protect him. Amid the carnage, Milvas understands the truth. He has been completely outmaneuvered. The enemy never intended to kill him directly. They forced his troops to collapse inward to shield him. As a result, the right flank is overcrowded. The front line twisted into an indefensible shape. With no tactics left, only brute force remains. He charges forward, sword blazing with golden aura, shouting that he will personally kill Lord Dale. Dale watches the attack with bored indifference. After that, Milvas and his soldiers fell into captivity. Dale mocks the predictability of Aura Knights, whose arrogance and blind loyalty to the battle doctrines of Saint Magdalena have turned into a fatal weakness. Cold memories surface in Dale's mind. In his previous life, his jailer was the holy swordsman himself, the leader of the Order of Saint Magdalena. Years under that man's watch taught Dale every habit, formation, and flaw of these knights. As the sun sinks and the battlefield darkens, a soldier rushes in with urgent news. Baron Greenbelt's forces have broken through, and the enemy's left wing has completely collapsed. Baron Parker, commander of that wing, now kneels in the dirt, armor damaged and pride shattered. Milvas curses under his breath, blaming Philip's incompetence for leading them into this disaster. Dale looks down at him with a faint smile and remarks that Lord Philip clearly never trusted Parker or his men. Milvas's eyes widen as the truth dawns on him. The retreat, the positioning, the chaos. It was all a setup from the beginning, a trap meant to lure them straight into the jaws of the Nightcrow. Dale steps closer, his cape fluttering in the cooling breeze. Dale lectures the captured commander, stating that while battlefields are always chaotic, those who invite ruin within that chaos have only their own foolishness to blame. His face brightens into a cheerful, almost innocent smile that never reaches his eyes. Extending a hand, he offers mercy in accordance with imperial tradition. Anyone willing to beg for their life and pay a ransom in gold will be spared. He asks if they are willing to beg. One kneeling knight erupts in rage, refusing to degrade himself. He declares he would rather die than participate in such humiliation. Dale's smile does not fade. He calmly asks if that is truly his choice. With a snap of his fingers, the answer is decided. A blade flashes, and the defiant knight is cut down instantly, collapsing in a pool of blood. Silence grips the remaining prisoners. Milvas stares at the corpse, sweat pouring down his face. Dale turns to him and waits. Trembling, Milvas convinces himself this is not fear, but necessity. He must survive to warn the main force of how dangerous this boy is. Swallowing his pride, he orders his men to kneel. He bows low before Dale. Pressing his forehead toward the grass, Milvas invokes imperial law. Since they have surrendered, he demands proper treatment as prisoners of war, expecting ransom negotiations. Dale watches with detached curiosity. He remarks that they were willing to beg just to stay alive. After a brief hum, deciding that since they abandoned their dignity, nothing else matters. Milvas looks up, confused. Dale's cheerful mask vanishing, replaced by pure malice. He declares that no one will survive and orders his men to kill them all. Even the Nightcrow Knight Order hesitates for a heartbeat. By imperial custom, ransom is standard. But as Dale's cold gaze sweeps over them, they remember who commands them. For Saxon's knights, his word is absolute. The massacre begins. A spear drives through a captive from behind. The air fills with the sound of steel tearing flesh. Realizing the betrayal, Milvas erupts in desperate fury. He leaps to his feet, drawing a concealed blade, screaming that he will not die like a sheep. He charges at Dale, swinging wildly. Before he can reach him, a crushing vertical strike cleaves through him, ending his resistance in a single blow. Silence follows. Two armored sentinels stand over pinned Milvas, spears driven into him beside a pool of blood. Dale approaches, his cape flowing as he moves behind a trembling blonde knight in red and gold armor. "Sir Milvas," he whispers near the knight's ear. Milvas freezes, horror flooding his face. Dale smiles playfully and asks if he remembers his death. Recalling the night Milvas stood by as his lord drove a sword into his back, memories of betrayal surface, the image of knights standing over a fallen comrade. Dale's expression hardens into pure hatred as he speaks again. Milvas breaks into a cold sweat, stammering in denial. He asks if the boy truly returned from death, calling him a monster. Dark purple energy seeps from the ground, wrapping around Dale's boots, and pierced through Milvas's body. Blood stains Dale's face, yet he smiles with genuine delight. He confirms it, jagged mana erupting around him, saying only now does he feel even slightly relieved. The scene abruptly shifts to the battlefield's aftermath. Steel clashes, screams echo, and defeat is absolute. A female knight is struck down, Another soldier is thrown from his mount, and the battle's momentum collapses completely. Philip, commander of the remaining forces, stares numbly across the ruined battlefield. As reality sets in, dread grips him. The right-wing cavalry has been annihilated. Sir Milva's and every Aura knight are dead. The left wing has collapsed, and the enemy's black cavalry is closing in on the main force. Philip grips his helmet, despair twisting his face. Dale's mocking smile and cold eyes flash through his mind, haunting him amid the carnage. He can't understand why that face won't leave him. "Young Master Philip, please decide," a subordinate shouts, snapping him back to reality. The surrounding soldiers look to him in desperation, pleading not to be abandoned to defeat. Panic and pride clash in Philip's eyes. He refuses to accept surrender. Turning to his men with reckless resolve, he orders them to fight to the end, declaring that their knight order will never kneel and commanding them not to retreat. A subordinate protests, warning that the order will lead to total annihilation. Philip explodes in rage, demanding whether the man dares defy the highest-ranking commander. He raises his sword and screams for the final charge, driving his horse straight into death as his men cry out in terror behind him. Moments later, Philip stands trembling. His composure shatters as he screams for his remaining soldiers to stop the enemy and protect him. Regret floods his mind. Facing death, he realizes how badly he wasted his life, wishing he had drunk more wine, embraced a lover, and died peacefully in a warm bed instead of on cold, blood-soaked dirt. Under a bruised purple twilight, the battlefield falls silent. Philip's forces lie broken or frozen in fear, offering no resistance as the young victor stands among them. Bale approaches Dale and calmly reports that everything has unfolded exactly as planned, praising young Master Dale for a strategy that crushed the enemy with terrifying efficiency. Kneeling and gasping for breath, Philip tries to negotiate. He claims that as commander, it was his sworn duty to survive until the end. Dale looks down at him without interest and coldly notes that the battle is already over, making his survival meaningless. Dale raises his weapon, panics, throwing up his hands and shouting for him to wait. Realizing that begging will not work, Philip forces a twisted smile and abruptly proposes a duel, insisting that Dale demanded it and that the entire battlefield be decided by single combat. Dale's adjutant scoffs, but Dale interrupts. With an innocent, harmless smile, he accepts the challenge. The instant the agreement settles, the commander's expression turns predatory. Spotting what he believes is an opening, he lunges forward, mocking Dale's arrogance and swinging his blade with killing intent, convinced the surprise attack will end everything. Dale moves. Violet-black energy erupts as Dale's counterstrike flashes forward, cutting through the air with effortless precision, dark aura trailing like a living shadow. Philip's confidence vanishes, replaced by pure confusion as his attack is crushed before he can even process what happened. The duel ends instantly. Philip collapses onto the grass, disarmed and utterly broken. Screaming in pain and terror, he writhes on the ground and begs repeatedly for his life. Dale gazes down at him with cold, empty eyes, quietly remarking that the man has chosen to live a pathetic life until his final breath. The war ends not with clashing steel, but with the shrill screams of a coward. Days later, the scene shifts to the capital. Trumpets blare as confetti rains from the sky, and the city erupts in celebration at the return of young Master Dale. He rides through the parade on a barded warhorse, cheeks flushed as he scratches his face, visibly embarrassed by the overwhelming praise. The crowd hails his tactical brilliance, marveling at the flawless encirclement and annihilation of the Knight Order of St. Magdalena. As Dale modestly accepts the acclaim, darker murmurs ripple through the celebration. Two men whisper that the victory came at the cost of too much blood. Nearby, a man in clerical robes fingers a golden sunburst pendant, overhears their doubts, and smiles serenely, quietly wondering whether the gods truly wished for such a complete massacre. Cardinal Nikolai of the Church of Goddess Sistina adjusts his vestments, his fingers brushing the golden cross at his throat. With a calm, almost kind expression, he murmurs that the child's blade is aimed at the enemy for now, but one day, it may turn on their own people without hesitation. Far from the cardinal's ominous thoughts, the grand blue doors of Saxon ducal castle swing open. Sunlight floods the hall as Dale, still in black armor, steps inside beside the towering Sir Helmet. Before they can advance, a blur of blue rushes forward. "Dale!" Lise sprints across the carpet and crashes gently into him, looking up with shining eyes. Dale's expression softens as he asks if she missed him. Lise hugs him tightly, declaring that she missed him terribly. Sir Helmet watches with pride and congratulates Dale on his first victory. Dale thanks him, one hand still resting on his sister's head. The reunion gives way to a formal procession. Holding Lise's hand, Dale walks deeper into the castle with Helmet. They pass a violet-haired elf standing respectfully aside and approach the dais, where the Duke and Duchess of House Saxon await. Dale steps forward alone, kneels, and formally reports his victory. The Duke praises him, declaring the triumph a victory of the sword of House Saxon. He then thanks Sir Bale, the bespectacled knight standing behind Dale, for guiding him. Bale bows in silence. The tension fades as the Duchess leans forward, gently telling Dale to rest after his long battle. Dale thanks her and rises. Looking at his family, his father's pride, his mother's warmth, and Liza's devotion, Dale smiles sincerely. After months surrounded by blood and steel, standing here makes him realize he has truly returned home. Elsewhere, in a suffocating hall filled with dread, Brandenburg grips a small key with trembling hands. Two battered survivors stand before him, one with a crutch, the other with his arm in a sling. He demands to know where Philip is and why only they survived. The injured knight stammers out the truth. The Knight Order of St. Magdalena, including Sir Milva's and the Aura Knights, has been completely annihilated. Young Master Philip has been captured by House Saxon, which is now demanding an enormous ransom. Brandenburg listens in silence. Then, turning around, he releases a terrifying pressure and accuses them of losing disastrously and fleeing to save their own lives. The survivors recoil in terror as he demands whether they understand the fate of deserters. One breaks down, begging forgiveness, but the nobleman shows none. He orders them thrown into the basement dungeon, vowing to make them beg for death. As the guards drag the screaming men away, the Count remains alone, consumed by humiliation and vengeance. The battle that set everything in motion becomes known as the Black and White Turning Point. Rumors spread of Dale, a child who showed no mercy to enemies begging for their lives, standing amid corpses with dark energy swirling around him and cold blue light in his eyes. The world comes to know him as the Black Young Master. Time passes, the seasons change. Dale turns 11. On his birthday, Dale stands before his father once more. He is no longer clad in armor, but dressed in an elegant suit with a jeweled cravat, carrying himself like a true aristocrat. At the upcoming official ceremony, the Duke announces he will appoint him as a Viscount of the Saxon ducal territory. Dale is stunned. A Viscount acts as a Lord's representative, an enormous responsibility for an 11-year-old. He almost speaks, then stops. This appointment fulfills his father's promise to acknowledge him not merely as a son, but as an equal head of the house. Dale bows politely and thanks his father. Sunlight pours through the tall windows as the Duke studies him in silence. Then the Duke speaks again, his tone commanding. Dale straightens. As his representative, he says there is something he wishes to do. When asked to explain, Dale recalls the battlefield. The Black Young Master's reputation for cruelty has spread, his ruthless orders, the knights slain, and the prisoners he spared none of. The Church's faithful suffered, and he knows the holy orders will not overlook that. With an innocent smile, he declares his intention to travel on a pilgrimage to the papal state of Sistina, to personally bear the weight of the infamy he created. The Duke is unconvinced. Fear, he argues, is a priceless weapon. Why abandon it to curry favor with the Church? Dale calmly answers that the Church is worth the concession. Sensing deeper intent, the Duke presses him. Dale steps forward and admits he has a plan. He intends to make them an offer they cannot refuse. Privately, his ambition runs deeper. He thinks of a dark grimoire glowing with violet power. While he is there, he will obtain the forbidden grimoires as well. That resolve was born days earlier. One night, Dale thrashes in his sleep, drenched in sweat. In his subconscious, a skeletal figure bathed in blue light looms over him, forcing him to face an inescapable past. It whispers of death, demanding remembrance. Purple fire burns in its empty sockets before it strikes, the blow jolting Dale awake. Gasping for breath, he clutches his chest and recognizes the nightmare, the abyss of the mind. It is the darkest memory from when he tore open his inner world to form his third circle. Mastery of the mind is essential for a mage, yet that same world now torments him with isolation and fear. He scoffs at himself, admitting his weakness. To truly control the chaos within, he needs a stronger anchor. Just as a knight relies on steel, a mage requires a grimoire. That book is the key to silencing the nightmares. The scene returns to the present. A wooden wagon rattles along a forest road, sunlight barely piercing the trees. They cross the border between Baron Greenbelt's territory and Baron Parker's lands, the site of a decisive turning point in the past. Wrapped in travel clothes, the boy watches the road ahead. This is the end of the Empire's northern reaches and the beginning of the central lands, far beyond Duke Saxon's protection, where he must rely solely on his own judgment and strength. After his crushing defeat by Dale, Baron Parker is left with only one way to survive: abandoning his title and living as a bandit. Deep in the forest, his men pursue a lone-covered wagon. At a shouted command, arrows fly, striking the wagon's frame and narrowly missing the panicked horses. The riders quickly surround the wagon and force it to stop, accusing the travelers of trespassing through Baron Parker's territory. Two figures sit inside, hidden beneath dark cloaks. A scarred bandit with a massive axe demands their business and insists on a toll, pretending to enforce the law. The bespectacled driver hesitates, then calmly agrees. He hands over a pouch. The bandit leader in a red bandana watches warily until the bag opens and gold coins spill into view. Greed overtakes him instantly. With false generosity, he allows the wagon to pass, already counting the fortune and mockingly inviting them to return. The wagon moves on, but only briefly. Soon, the road is blocked again. Standing above them is Baron Parker himself, flanked by his men, including the bandits who just took the gold. He orders the wagon to halt and demands respect. The hooded driver calmly points out that they already paid a toll moments ago and asks if collecting twice is illegal. The bandits burst into laughter. Parker steps forward, axe-wielding thug at his side, and sneers that they follow the Empire's laws better than anyone. Dropping all pretense, he demands everything they own if they value their lives. He boasts about his past glory as the hero of the black and white turning point. A small, amused voice cuts him off, remarking that Parker's version of history sounds very different from reality. The smaller figure lowers his hood. Blue eyes and dark hair are revealed. Parker freezes in horror. He recognizes the boy instantly. Young Master Dale. Terror replaces his arrogance as he stumbles back, shouting at his men not to panic, insisting they still outnumber the pair. From the ridge, the bandit leader looks down at the exposed wagon with greedy confidence. To him, it is easy prey. He raises his fist and declares victory. Archers draw their bows, aiming carefully at the two figures below. On the road, the mood is entirely different. Bale steps forward beside the wagon and calmly asks for orders. Dale looks up with a single visible eye, unimpressed and bored. He gives the command, declaring that the act is over. The bandit leader screams for them to fire. Arrows rain down, screaming through the air toward the boy and his guardian. Dale does not flinch. In an instant, Bale reveals his power. A massive, ornate halberd manifests in his hands, wrapped in dark purple energy. He swings it with blinding speed, forming a wall of steel and shadow. The arrows are obliterated midair, shattered and deflected with perfect control, clattering harmlessly to the ground at his feet. The bandits on the ridge freeze as triumph turns into confusion. Before they can fire again, Bale launches himself upward, scaling the cliff in a single, gravity-defying leap, dark energy trailing behind him like a comet. The archers gasp as they realize too late that their prey is the predator. He lands among them, his halberd tearing through the air. Steel meets flesh, and a bandit's scream echoes as he collapses, clutching a severed limb. Chaos erupts. Bale moves like a phantom, his blade a blur that annihilates the group in seconds. Their once arrogant leader watches in trembling horror, sweat pouring down his face as reality crashes in. This is no ordinary traveler, and this is a massacre. His composure shatters as his men are cut down before his eyes. Silence soon returns to the forest, broken only by the captain's whimpers. He drops to his knees before Dale and Bale, desperately offering a bag of gold. He begs for forgiveness, swears loyalty, and even invokes the goddess for mercy. Dale looks down at him, a chilling, shark-like grin spreading across his face. His eye gleams with malice as he asks one simple question. Why would he ever grant such mercy? The bandit leader's face twists in despair as he stares into the abyss of the boy's cruelty. Scenes like this become routine. As Dale travels the central continent, broken robber nobles and bandit knights fall in his wake, the lawless cut down with ruthless efficiency. Weeks later, the landscape changes. Dense forests and dirt roads give way to a wide, tranquil river bordered by lush greenery and towering cliffs. Dale and Bale drift along in a small boat, the calm water standing in sharp contrast to the bloodshed behind them. Bale gently pulls the boat and announces their destination. Rising from the river's edge is the papal state of Sistina. The city of Betrayal, seat of the Holy See, gleams beneath the sun, its white towers and golden spires reaching skyward in divine splendor. Dale studies the sight with open disdain. To him, the holiness of this place is a farce. He has not come as a pilgrim seeking blessings. He has come as an executioner. The word echoing in his mind is not worship, but judgment. After docking, they enter the city and proceed into the grand cathedral. Light pours through stained glass, illuminating vast marble floors as armored guards stand watch by the massive doors. Dale and his guardian walk the long aisle toward the altar, where a lone figure waits. Seated beneath the holy cross on a throne-like chair is a high-ranking clergyman. The guardian bows respectfully and offers formal greetings. The man is introduced as Cardinal Nikolai Makia. Silver-haired and smiling serenely, he welcomes them with a benevolence that feels rehearsed, his closed eyes masking his true nature as he receives the wolves who have entered his domain. An oppressive pressure fills the hall, the presence of a sixth circle white mage, one of the 12 high clergies at the peak of the faith. The cardinal gazes down at Dale with feigned kindness, idly rolling a rosary between his fingers. I heard an incredible amount of blood was spilled in that battle, young Master Dale, he says smoothly. The sacrifice of the Knight Order of St. Magdalena is truly regrettable. Dale kneels in silence, head bowed in apparent reverence, his hand gripping the jewel at his chest. Leaning forward, Dale claims regret over the black and white turning point, blaming his own poor judgment for unnecessary sacrifices. Placing a hand over his heart, he performs a show of humility, explaining that to atone, and to conceal his strength, he came personally to the papal state on pilgrimage. Inside, Nikolai's thoughts are far less holy. He studies the boy, recalling rumors of the Empire's greatest genius. He wonders if the horrors of war have broken him, leaving behind guilt that can be exploited. A smug smile forms in his mind as he concludes that, despite his talent, Dale is still just an 11-year-old child. Then this works out perfectly, Nikolai says, his smile widening into something grandfatherly and predatory. The goddess's mercy is equal for all, young master. In this world, there is no sin that cannot be washed away. Dale's bangs shadow his eyes as he remains motionless. There's no sin in this world that cannot be washed away? That's right, the clergyman replies, spreading his arms as if to embrace the boy's guilt. Is that why you sold the goddess's nation to the Empire? The question slices through the air. Nikolai freezes, his benevolent mask cracking as sweat beads on his temple. He turns sharply, forcing a laugh that trembles. Your joke has gone too far. Back then, Dale cuts in coldly, right before the theocratic state was forcibly annexed by the Empire, 12 cardinal bishops tried to persuade the previous pope to accept annexation. Dale lifts his head, blue eyes piercing straight through him. Your Eminence was among them. Nikolai's mind flashes back to that day. He remembers standing with the betrayers as the pope refused the treaty to the end. He remembers the bloodshed, the clash of steel, the White Magic Tower's betrayal, and the Holy Father lying dead, slain by the Empire's hunting dogs. The cathedral fills with suffocating tension as Dale stares him down. Did the goddess also forgive the sin of selling your own country, your Eminence? Nikolai grits his teeth as his composure collapses. Golden mana crackles through the hall, the air vibrating with pressure. You spoke of atonement, Dale says, rising to his feet as the magic intensifies. Yet you dare preach forbidden truths with that mouth? Nikolai clutches the armrests in a fit of rage. Do you really think the goddess's mercy will be on your side? Nikolai roars. Dale replied, how laughable. Do you think killing a mere proxy of the Duke will silence anything? Golden sparks scatter like embers. Dale stands amid the swirling power, no longer resembling a child, but a judge. The Duke didn't come to uncover the Church's disgraceful secrets. What we want is your payment for our silence. Inside, Dale remains perfectly calm. Of course, it's a lie. Duke Saxon likely has no idea what's unfolding here. Cornered, Nikolai groans as sweat pours down his face. He shuts his eyes, trying to steady himself, but the angry is undeniable. What? He rasps at last, opening his eyes to the boy who has completely outplayed him. What do you want? Dale's stern expression breaks into a sly, victorious smirk. I've heard there's a secret archive beneath the lowest level of the cathedral, the place where the Church keeps its forbidden books. Nikolai jolts, eyes widening in disbelief. Grant me unrestricted access to the Library of Hell, Dale demands. At its deepest level lies the most horrific grimoire in existence, the Book of Black Goat. The scene shifts to the cathedral's bright marble corridors. Nikolai stands before Dale, outlining the strict conditions. Only one person may enter the Library of Hell. If disaster occurs, the Church bears no responsibility. The boy may retrieve only a single grimoire, and he must swear eternal silence regarding the Church's buried disgrace. Dale doesn't hesitate. As the successor of Duke Saxon, I swear upon the name of Saxon, he declares, extending his hand. Then, as proof of this oath, Nikolai begins, taking it. I will stake both your heart and mine as collateral. Magic erupts the instant their hands meet. A massive, radiant angel manifests behind them as a geas is formed, the ultimate contract of the White Magic Tower. In the metaphysical realm, a beating heart is bound in glowing chains, linking their lives to the pact. From this moment on, there is no escape. If Dale breaks the contract, the chains will tighten, and his heart will burst. With the deal finalized, Dale descends into the darkness, his boots echoing against the cold stone stairs as a lantern lights his path underground. Despite the lethal stakes, his expression remains bored. To him, the Church's so-called great secret is hardly worth the drama. At the bottom, he stops before towering double doors, radiating an unnatural chill. Reading the ancient inscription, he murmurs, "The gate of hell, abandon all hope, ye who enter here." He grips the iron handle and forces the doors open, stale ancient air rushing past as his cloak flutters and he steps inside. Beyond lies a vast hall lined with endless shelves. Though called a library, he immediately recognizes it for what it truly is. A massive dungeon. The forbidden books stored here are not simple texts, but unstable treasures capable of causing catastrophe. Still, his resolve doesn't waver. Just as a knight needs a sword, a mage needs a grimoire. The pursuit of power, no matter how dangerous, is instinctive. Metal clanks through the silence. From between the shelves, armored figures emerge. Knights in heavy plate, hollow light glowing from their eyes. They block his path, raising massive swords with lethal intent. "So this place has guardians," Dale mutters, scoffing. "A church that preaches light is no different from the noir magic tower, using corpses for its dirty work." The knights charge, great swords cutting through the air where he stands. He doesn't flinch. A dark smirk spreads across his face. "No one's watching," he whispers, shedding his noble facade. "There's no need to pretend." Shadowy energy gathers around him, forming sharp, fluid spikes. With a cold command, shadow bullet, dark tendrils erupt from his body, piercing the knight's armor like paper. The guardians are skewered, lifted into the air, and torn apart in an instant. Silence returns. Dale stands amid the wreckage, armored bodies scattered across the floor. He adjusts his cloak, calmly satisfied. For once, he's free to loosen the restraints on his power. But the real purpose of his visit is still ahead. He raises a gleaming dagger and slashes his palm without hesitation. Dark crimson blood spills onto the stone floor. As it pools, Dale declares himself Dale of Saxon, rightful heir to the immortal duke's bloodline. The blood pulses in response, awakening ancient magic. His chant deepens, invoking the black goat of the forest and its 1,000 offspring, demanding the fulfillment of an old pact. The shadows twist and the blood begins to glow. Reality fractures. Shrill, disembodied voices scream from the void, drawn by the scent of a mage's blood. Invisible entities swarm, begging for contracts, promising power in exchange for his life force. The air turns thick and red as they press against reality itself. The world shifts violently. The library dissolves, replaced by a sky the color of dried veins. Dale stands ankle-deep in an endless sea of blood. Twisted trees rise from the crimson flood, bodies impaled on jagged spikes stretching into the distance. The stench of slaughter and hatred fills the air. Dale surveys the scene, unimpressed. This is a construct, a world inside a book. From the blood behind him, a towering figure rises, cloaked like an executioner and wielding a massive, jagged scythe. Its eyes burn with predatory malice as it offers a contract, promising to butcher Dale's enemies and hold a festival of death in his name, tempting him with visions of an endless ocean of blood. Dale floats in the sea of blood, calmly assessing the entity and its surroundings. The landscape confirms his suspicion. This is the mental world of the Book of Massacre, a legendary grimoire of blood magic forged from the essence of large-scale slaughter. Its value is immeasurable, its power born from countless deaths. A fleeting image of a dark wizard wielding crimson energy surfaces in his mind, revealing the book's violent origin. But Dale has no intention of submitting or accepting the first contract offered. He looks up at the towering executioner with bored, dismissive eyes and orders it to step aside, stating plainly that this creature is not who he came for. The executioner erupts in rage. The rejection is unforgivable. Roaring, it swings its massive weapon down, screaming that refusal means death. Dale doesn't move. A faint smirk crosses his face as he calmly asks why he shouldn't be able to leave. He reminds the creature that this is nothing more than a fabricated reality inside a book, a fiction with no authority over him. As the blade descends, his power surges, ready to shatter the illusion. But my world is different. Violet energy explodes outward, forming a violent storm around him. Dale stands unfazed, his expression playful yet terrifyingly confident. Across from him, the executioner hesitates as its own reality begins to shake. It senses the impossible, a clash of domains, where one world overwrites another. This realm, born from the twisted mind of a war criminal mage, should be absolute. Yet the domain of a child is forcing it back with overwhelming ease. Dale walks forward through the dark snow, his boots crunching softly. In a calm conversational tone, he dismisses the executioner's master, stating that the number of lives claimed here is insignificant compared to his own past. He speaks casually of cities erased and a kill count so vast it no longer has meaning. To him, this level of slaughter is trivial. Cornered and enraged, the executioner roars and swings its scythe in desperation. The blade tears through the air, but stops. An invisible, absolute force halts the attack mid-swing. Then reality fractures. The executioner's body, weapon, and the space around it shatter like glass. Its form disintegrates piece by piece as it stares at its own unraveling hands in disbelief. The executioner vanishes completely. The battlefield illusion collapses, fragments of the false world falling away to reveal the true setting beneath it. The blood-soaked domain dissolves into the warm interior of a grand library. Dale stands alone, unaffected, and turns toward the presence observing him. "Have you come back?" he asks. A girl steps forward, smiling brightly. She has curling ram horns, long silver hair, and wears a gothic dress. With playful warmth, she calls him handsome and admits she summoned him out of loneliness. Leaning closer, she asks if he will play with her. Dale studies her, then recalls the artifact anchoring her existence, the Book of Black Goat. He remembers its origin, written by the immortal Duke Frederick, who sacrificed his own young daughter to pursue forbidden truth. The being before him is not that child, but the grimoire's avatar. Understanding this, Dale comments on the cold solitude of the place and proposes a formal contract. He asks the daughter of Black Goat to bind herself to him. She agrees with a mischievous grin, but demands to see his world. Dale accepts instantly. The scenery shifts in a violent blur. The library vanishes, replaced by an endless landscape of white snow and freezing winds. The girl gasps in delight and runs forward, spinning through the drifts as she marvels at the beauty of his mental world, declaring how much she likes him. The girl suddenly stops mid-spin, her joyful expression shifting to curiosity as she points ahead. Standing in the snow are 3 men in clerical robes, shivering and visibly shaken. Their trembling eyes lock onto the boy and the horned girl as they realize they have stumbled into something far beyond their understanding. Nikolai clutches a holy symbol to his chest, sweat beading on his forehead as terror overtakes him. The frozen plain grows heavier with tension. Cardinal Nikolai stares at the small figure before him, disbelief flooding his mind. He never imagined a mere child would truly obtain that dangerous grimoire. Beside the boy stands the pale, horned girl, her sinister presence standing out sharply against the white snow. Breaking the silence, Dale speaks calmly. He asks Nikolai why he came all this way. Startled, Nikolai flinches and hurriedly raises his hands, claiming he was simply passing through. The excuse is weak, and Dale sees through it instantly. With mocking amusement, he quotes their agreement, reminding him that no responsibility would be borne regardless of what happened in hell. He points out that Nikolai's unease proves the Gaius was never enough to calm his fears. Nikolai's composure cracks as Dale spreads his arms, welcoming the darkness around them. He states that Nikolai may have come to eliminate him, but this is a world of shadows, and a mage of light chose the wrong place to step into. Nikolai forces a trembling smile and insists it is all a misunderstanding, but the horned girl has already lost interest in the conversation. She cups her face, her eyes glowing pink, as a wide, predatory grin spreads across her lips. Calling him handsome, she asks if she can eat them. Dale answers casually, warning her that he won't take responsibility if she gets a stomachache. Delighted, she agrees, happily noting how long it has been since her last feast and how excited she feels. Realizing there is no escape, Nikolai drops the act. He grips the jeweled cross at his neck and begins chanting desperately, invoking the Holy Trinity and begging for mercy. Behind him, a massive ethereal woman with wings appears, her hands clasped in prayer. Holy light floods the battlefield, crashing against the boy's dark aura. The power pours into the armored guards as radiant feathers burst from their backs, transforming them into winged warriors. Nikolai declares that the Lord's light has covered them and orders them to destroy the servant of Satan. Dale watches, a bead of sweat sliding down his cheek, though his smirk remains. He admits that this will not be easy. The winged knights launch into the air and dive toward him at terrifying speed. A sword flashes downward, aiming to split him in two. Dale slides backward across the ice, narrowly avoiding the strike as the blade crashes into the frozen ground. He immediately counters, thrusting his hand forward and casting Shadow Bullet. Dark tendrils shoot upward toward the airborne knight, but the angel twists mid-air and narrowly evades the attack as it streaks into the sky. Watching closely, Nikolai sneers. Dale mutters in frustration, acknowledging the enemy's agility. Nikolai proudly declares that this is the power of his angels, mocking the boy for being only a third-circle mage. He claims the boy cannot draw out the true power of the Book of the Black Goat. Behind him, the towering angelic projection shines even brighter, filling the battlefield with blinding radiance and crushing divine pressure. Suddenly, the white-haired girl clutches her head in agony, pressing her hands against her temples as if her skull is being torn apart from the inside. Dale beside her stiffens in alarm, unable to intervene as she grinds her teeth and pleads desperately for the voices to stop. Her strained muttering erupts into a piercing scream that echoes across the frozen battlefield. The winged knights mistake her distress for weakness and descend in formation, blades drawn, rushing to exploit the opening. In response, her shadow erupts outward, jagged tendrils of darkness surging up to intercept them. One celestial soldier weaves through the attack with practiced precision, his sword flashing as he slices through the shadows. Declaring her defenses broken, he lunges forward, arrogantly proclaiming judgment upon the fallen. But just as his blade nears her, her expression changes. The panic vanishes, replaced by a sinister grin hidden beneath her bangs. In that instant, the knight realizes the truth. The weakness was bait. A massive fist of condensed shadow materializes midair and slams into him with overwhelming force. His armor crumples as he is hurled backward, crashing violently into another airborne knight. Both bodies spiral down and smash into the snow in a tangled heap of feathers and steel. The girl stands amid swirling darkness, her dress rippling in the wake of her own power as she watches them fall. Nikolai rushes toward the impact site, panic gripping his face as he calls out to his men. Reaching the fallen knight, he expects wounds, but instead finds the soldier trembling uncontrollably, eyes wide and empty. The knight stammers broken words of worship. Nikolai freezes as dark violet veins spread rapidly across the man's face, splitting skin and tainting his once pristine armor. The stammering twists into a horrifying chant. The fallen knight screams praises to an unseen entity, his voice warped and fanatical. The corruption spreads to the second soldier, and their voices rise together in maddened harmony. Nikolai staggers back, clutching the holy relic at his neck, unable to comprehend the blasphemy unfolding before him. He can only stare in absolute horror as his men are overtaken by the darkness, demanding to know what kind of monstrosity he is witnessing. The air reeks of death and iron as armored men crumble under an invisible, malevolent force. Their holy chants warp into mindless devotion, bodies jerking as black energy crawls through every limb. Feathers from shredded wings drift through a blood-red haze, settling around a small horned girl in a ruffled black dress that seems to eat the light itself. She breathes in the scent of the dying with wide, manic eyes, savoring every moment. Nikolai is on the ground, pale and soaked in cold sweat, clutching his holy symbol like it'll do anything for him. Standing over him is an 11-year-old boy, the Black Young Master, and honestly, the demon he commands is less terrifying than the boy himself. Ice-cold blue eyes track every one of Nikolai's trembles with zero emotion. The boy steps forward and calmly reminds Nikolai of their contract both parties agreed. Neither would be held responsible for what happened here. Completely broken, Nikolai throws everything at the wall. Gold, titles, the full weight of the church's influence. He just wants to walk away alive. The boy smiles, and it is not a kind smile. He doesn't just want the gold or the connections, he wants all of it, including Nikolai's freedom. He proposes rewriting their deal into a geese, a binding oath of total, inescapable obedience. As that sinks in, Nikolai's face goes blank. The trap is fully closed, and the cardinal is now a puppet with no strings left to cut. With the threat neutralized, the horned girl skips over, horns swaying, clearly thrilled. She tells the boy she had a great time and will be waiting for his next call. She leans in and asks if he's afraid of her. He doesn't flinch, hits back with a sharp, fearless smile. But internally, he knows she's too volatile, too dangerous to use freely. He files her away as a trump card for the absolute worst-case scenario only. She asks if they can play again. He promises they will, and she beams before the darkness recedes. Back in the world, things shift fast. Dale, eldest son of House Saxon, emerges completely cleared. Cardinal Nikolai Makia, now bound to serve him, publicly wipes every stain from Dale's name. The reconciliation plays out in a sunlit cathedral, where Dale walks the long aisle past the cardinal who once held authority over him, formally bridging the rift between House Saxon and the church. No more shadows. Dale steps into the open as the acknowledged Black Young Master, carrying his lineage with confidence nobody would dare challenge. Months pass in a blur. On snow-dusted training grounds, Charlotte of House Orheart lets a torrent of dark, violet-tinged aura rip from her greatsword. The energy swirls around her in a violent vortex, thick and suffocating. Her seasoned instructor watches with crossed arms, and even he has to admit that her mastery of the aura blade is at a level nobody her age should be at. Dale steps in and cuts straight to the point. He asks if she'll swear loyalty as his knight, her strength dedicated to his house, his honor, and the protection of the innocent. Charlotte doesn't answer in words. She drives the great sword into the earth, drops to one knee, and that says everything. Dale places his blade on her shoulder and completes the rite, asking if she'll shun selfish desires and punish evil. She swears her life to his cause. He names her Dame Charlotte. Walking the courtyard afterward, he asks why she chose House Saxon's heavy greatsword over her own house's rapiers. She gives him that knowing smile and tells him simply that sword is what shaped Dale into who he is. Her loyalty isn't to a house, it's to him. Dale says nothing, but behind those blue eyes, a private vow is already taking shape. The moment doesn't last. Dale informs her that a massive orc warband is gathering beyond the Demon King's former territory, led by a dangerous war boss. His father is already mobilizing forces and summoning the Northern Lords. He wants her beside him when the fighting starts. She places a hand over her heart and promises to be the unbreakable sword that protects him. In the Grand Council chamber, the air is suffocating. The Duke sits at the head of the long table, gloved hands clasped, and lays out the full picture. A massive orc warband is pushing south from the Darkland, the Demon King's former domain. One advisor asks the question everyone is dreading. Is this the start of another wave of the barbarian invasions? The Duke confirms it. The world assumed peace had arrived when the hero Hansung and the Empire slew the Demon King. It wasn't. The surviving demon races fled their ruined homeland and turned south, trading survival for relentless conquest. Now the entire Imperial war machine is spinning up the Northern Lords, the Noir Magic Tower, every knightly order in the realm. What's coming will be a slaughter on a scale this generation has never seen. Then the Duke turns his gaze directly to Dale. He calls the boy's name, pulling him from the maps. His expression is hard and cold, no warmth, just necessity. He tells Dale that theory is over. It's finally time to learn how to use necromancy on the battlefield. Dale stares back in silence, the full weight of those words settling over him. The Duke of Noir's underground workshop is cold and quiet as Dale steps into his first formal lesson on battlefield necromancy. The Duke opens with a direct question. What separates a Death Knight from a common undead soldier? Dale compares it to the gap between a knight and a foot soldier. The Duke pushes when Dale suggests combat power is the defining factor. He earns half a point. High power alone doesn't make a knight. Dale guesses Aura Blade Mastery next, but the Duke responds by leading him to a stone slab instead. The man laid out on the altar wore dark, intricate plate armor, a knight who fell at the black and white turning point. He swore his essence to House Saxon, a vow built to outlast death itself. The Duke raises a hand. Violet black energy erupts from the void, and it coils around the corpse like living vines. The knight's eyes ignite with cold, spectral light, and the figure rises. The answer is simple. A Death Knight's strength ties directly to how powerful an Aura Knight they were in life. Proud warriors in death as in life. The lesson continues downward through a winding staircase that seems to drill into the Earth's core. The Duke brings up the immortal Duke Frederick, founder of House Saxon, and Dale's skin prickles. Frederick was the kind of man who sacrificed his own daughter in pursuit of forbidden truth. What makes it personal is that Frederick's grimoire currently lives inside Dale's heart. They stop before a massive arched gateway sealed by a shimmering purple ward, one only direct Saxon bloodline can cross. On the other side, the chamber is enormous. Row after row of armored figures stand in perfect silence, a frozen legion stretching into the dark. Frederick discovered a method to sustain them without constant mana. This is the Death Order, a cultivated army of the grave, maintained by every Duke of House Saxon across generations. The truth hits Dale like a collapsed ceiling. Every moral lecture, every ironclad rule his father ever preached, it was never about virtue. It was a calculated facade built to hide the Death Order from the world. Dale clenches his fists until they tremble, his silhouette small against the enormity of what he's inherited. The Duke meets his gaze with cold violet eyes and asks the only question left. Is Dale prepared to accept this sin? Dale doesn't flinch. Violet mana erupts from his palm with a sinister crackle. He was ready from the beginning. He claims his name, claims his house, and accepts the corruption with full clarity, knowing that beneath the loyal sun exterior, his real driving force is revenge. Training begins in a dim underground hall. Dale extends threads of purple mana like a puppeteer's strings, anchored into a Death Knight's frame. On command, the knight grips a violet-edged greatsword and drives it through a powerful arc. The Duke acknowledges that Dale's mana refinement is abnormally advanced for his age. The remaining gap is that Dale still needs a constant mana feed to keep the knight active, unlike the self-sustaining Death Order. The Duke waves it off too early. Right now, the priority is learning to project that will on a real battlefield. The Duke conjures dark energy, and a pack of glowing-eyed ghouls pours from the shadows. One launches straight at the Death Knight. The knight drops low and unloads a horizontal sweep that sends bodies scattering like ragdolls. The Duke's composure actually cracks for a moment. Necromancy is normally a long-range academic discipline, not a martial art. But the swordsmanship Dale channels through that corpse is fluid and lethal, surpassing any knight from the Nightcrow Order. The Duke can only watch and wonder what kind of monster is forming in front of him. The scene shifts to a frozen wasteland where Dale trains with his elven teacher. He launches a massive, jagged ice shard across the sky, and it detonates in a burst of snow and debris. His teacher watches quietly, pulled into her own thoughts. She remembers his old act, innocent, harmless, effortlessly naive. But what she sees now is something else. Beneath his polished surface is a biting chill and a desperate hunger not for power, but for the raw, aching need to be loved. When the session settles, she praises his water element control. Dale responds with a practiced smile, framing his growth as a tribute to a vow made to his father to become a son worth being proud of. The smile fades almost immediately. His shoulders tighten, and he goes quiet. She notices and asks what's wrong. He turns and asks her something painfully honest. Will she still care for him once his ugly side is exposed? He admits the fear that accepting his house's dark history will make her look at him with nothing but disappointment. She doesn't answer with words. She steps forward, cups his face in both hands, and holds his gaze steady. Dale freezes completely, barely breathing her name. She doesn't pull away. A faint blush spreads across her cheeks, and her expression settles into something unmistakably warm. Sephia cups the young boy Dale's face with surprising tenderness, her expression carrying the kind of melancholy warmth that clearly catches him off guard. He stammers, unsure whether to address her as his teacher, given how charged the moment feels. She looks down at him, purple hair framing her flushed face, and quietly lays out the reality of her elven existence, centuries of life that will leave her untouched while he grows into a man. But internally, she's wrestling with herself. She thinks about the dark reputation that follows Dale everywhere, the whispers on the streets about the black young master, a boy celebrated for his terrifying lethality. People speak of how he massacred every last enemy at the black and white turning point, and in her mind she sees the horrifying image. Dale, standing atop a mountain of corpses, dark energy swirling around a silhouette the world calls the God of Massacre. She knows he has the power to shape history. What she's desperate to do is pull him away from the blood-soaked path that leads there. So she makes her decision. She promises to stay by his side until he understands his own feelings, and in a voice barely above a whisper, she tells him that when that day comes, she won't stand before him as a teacher, just as a woman. Dale turns bright red on the spot. Sophia immediately clocks the heaviness she just dropped on the moment, clears her throat awkwardly, and tries to pivot back to professionalism. Lesson time. She doesn't get the chance. Dale lunges forward, wraps his arms around her waist, and buries his face in her stomach. He's trembling, pouring everything out, thanking her, telling her he genuinely likes her, asking her to wait for him. Sophia smiles, soft and real, and simply says yes. They stand there in the snow together, and in that quiet exchange, a childhood promise gets sealed between them. That stillness doesn't last. Banners snap in the cold wind as a military procession takes shape outside. The northern lords are converging at the dukedom, their forces gathering to confront the barbarian threat pressing in from the frontier. Inside the grand hall, the air is heavy with polished steel and the weight of impending war. Knights stand in tight formation as the lords take turns pledging their fealty. Wilhelm of Gale booms his introduction with theatrical gravity. Valderberg of Cannes announces 30 knights, 100 heavy infantry, and 400 regular infantry. Duke Saxon sits on the throne, draped in dark robes, watching everything with quiet authority. Dale stands beside him, composed on the outside, quietly exhausted on the inside. The military pledges blur into noble socializing fast. Everyone in the room knows exactly who the center of gravity is, and they swarm Dale. Wilhelm's eldest son Beth practically radiates enthusiasm, calling Dale the Black Young Master, and declaring his desperate desire to fight alongside him. Dale smiles politely through the intensity. Then a pair of noblewomen in silk dresses push Beth aside entirely, cooing over how much more wonderful Dale is than the rumors suggested. He laughs it off with practiced humility, internally noting that politics is genuinely exhausting work. Then the tone shifts. A knight in black plate armor with dark purple hair cuts through the flatterers, like they're not there. He's heard the rumors that even at his age, Dale's martial ability rivals veteran knights. He wants to see it himself. The older knight traveling with him nearly has a stroke, grabbing the man by the shoulder and stammering apologies for the outrageous rudeness. Dale doesn't flinch. His social mask drops, replaced by something cooler and sharper. He identifies the challenger as Sir Yonez, second son of Baron Kenneth, a man who built a mercenary unit of 100 soldiers from scratch as a wandering knight, someone who can't inherit land under primogeniture and is desperate to prove his worth. Dale reads all of that in seconds and decides, this man could be useful. He smiles brightly and accepts the duel. The grand hall rearranges itself into an arena. Duke Noir watches from his throne without intervening. This clash will establish the hierarchy before the war begins, which suits him fine. Yonez draws his claymore and warns Dale it's no ordinary weapon, the so-called Sword of Shadow. He demands Dale stop holding back and fight at full strength, dark energy crackling around his armor as he speaks. Dale watches the display with glowing blue eyes, calmly analyzing the technique. Yonez hasn't reached the level required for a true aura blade, but his control is clean and precise. Satisfied, Dale exhales and the shadows beneath his feet come alive. They writhe, stretch, and solidify into a colossal jagged blade of pure obsidian that rises from the floor and dwarfs the boy holding it. The crowd recognizes the signature immediately. Yonez taunts him and launches himself into the air, bringing his full weight and gravity crashing down in a vertical slash. Dale catches it with one hand. The floor trembles from the impact. Dale doesn't budge. He holds the stalemate with a placid, almost bored expression, while Yonez grinds his teeth and pushes with everything he has. He screams his frustration, accusing Dale of being born into power, while men like him bled for every inch. Then he shoves forward, breaks the lock, and charges again with a relentless flurry of strikes. Dale weaves through all of it, with barely any movement, his black coat swaying gently as steel whistles past him. Yonez spots what looks like a gap in the defense and commits everything to a finishing blow. Dale doesn't dodge. His blade surges with violet aura, and he swings upward to meet it, not with a deflection, but with raw shearing force. The impact doesn't produce a clang. It produces a snap. The upper half of Yonez's sword spins away into the air, cleanly destroyed, as Dale's shadow blade follows through the arc without slowing down. Dark purple tendrils snake across the floor and rise into jagged blades, boxing Yonez in from every direction. The young master stands at the center of it all, completely calm, a sphere of shadow steel rotating around him like a personal storm. He acknowledges Yonez as a worthy opponent's solid technique, refined skill, and then invites him to attack, promising not to move an inch. Yonez takes the bait. Pride and desperation launch him forward with a heavy vertical strike, refusing to be embarrassed by a child. Their weapons collide in a burst of light and dark energy that rattles the entire hall. Up in the gallery, nobles watch in stunned silence, genuinely unable to reconcile this level of martial dominance with an 11-year-old. Yonez keeps swinging, but every strike hits a wall of impenetrable shadow. The cold realization sets in, he's not in a real fight. He's a prop in a performance staged for the Northern Lord and the watching nobles. He screams and pushes his body past its limit, demanding more speed from legs that have nothing left. It doesn't matter. On their final exchange, the pressure of the shadow weave snaps Yonez's steel clean in half. He drops to one knee, leaning on the broken hilt, and admits defeat in a quiet, bitter whisper. The young master presses a hand to his chest, genuinely surprised the entire fight played out in slow motion for him, and the ease with which he dismantled a seasoned aura user's full offense still catches him off guard. The shadow cloak no longer feels like something he's wearing. It moves like an extension of his soul, responding to his intent the way a limb would. The clash with Yonez pushed something in him forward, a visceral, undeniable evolution. To mark it, he levels a finger at the kneeling captain and fires a shadow bullet. The obsidian burst slams Yonez deeper into the stone floor, his armor rattling under the pressure. The young master straightens up, blade held low, and sweeps his cold gaze across every face in the room. He asks who else has the courage to challenge him or doubt his name. Nobody moves. Then a single knight drives his sword into the floor and drops to one knee. The rest follow one by one, heads bowed, swearing their loyalty. The young master lets a small, satisfied smile settle on his face. His father always said fear is the most reliable guarantee of loyalty. Standing over a room full of trembling men, he decides that's one of the truest things he's ever been told. The scene moves outside to the cold night air, away from the gala's glittering lights. Yonez walks with a heavy, bitter stride and a bottle in hand. The image of the young master sits in his mind like an immovable wall, an insult to every drop of sweat he's ever shed. The world decided his ceiling at birth, and no amount of effort was ever going to change that. Later, around a crackling campfire in the snowy woods, the bitterness turns into loud, drunken mockery. Yonez and his men laugh and take turns insulting the noble class, the women who fawn over the boy, and the child himself questioning his dignity, his manhood, everything. Then a calm voice cuts through the laughter from directly behind them, asking if that's really what they think. Every man at that fire goes pale. The young master is standing right there in the firelight, expression unbothered. He doesn't strike. He sits down on a log, eyes the bottle, and asks why nobody's pouring. Yonez's bravado evaporates on the spot. He stammers and scrambles to serve the boy he was just mocking. The fire crackles between them as the young master leans forward and pours a steady stream of liquor into Yonez's mug. He asks a heavy question, does the world feel cursed? Yonez flinches and quickly denies it. But the young master isn't done. He speaks quietly about a world where talent and circumstances are fixed before birth, where human will doesn't actually change much of anything. He asks if there's truly anything left for a person to decide with their own hands. Yonez has no real argument and gives a shaky, defeated agreement. A hand settles firmly on Yonez's shoulder. The young master tells him not to blame himself. Nowhere in the world can fate be redirected by human hands alone. Something breaks loose in Yonez's chest. He throws his head back and laughs loud, hollow, a man releasing something he'd been holding too tight for too long. When it dies down to a sigh, he admits with his hand over his eyes that no matter how hard he fought, he never actually had a chance. The young master watches him carefully, then calls him by his full name, Sir Yonez, second son of House Kenneth. The mercenary's hand drops, and his eyes go wide. The recognition hits like a slap. And before Yonez can process it, the young master states plainly that he likes him, then asks, without any build-up, if Yonez and his entire unit would be willing to draw their swords for House Saxon and serve directly under his command. Yonez stares back with his mouth slightly open, barely able to find his voice. The offer is so sudden, so far beyond anything he expected, that he asks for it to be repeated. Above them, the twilight sky stretches wide and quiet, embers drifting upward like the first signs of something about to change. Dale closes the campfire conversation with an offer that leaves Yonez speechless service under House Saxon, with the Night Crow Knights personally training his entire unit in everything from basic swordsmanship to aura cultivation. Yonez can barely process it, asking why any noble would hand over secrets that prestigious to someone like him. Dale just smiles and tells him plainly that he needs allies, and Yonez happened to be in the right place. For a man who spent his whole life getting the short end of the world's stick, that answer hits different. In Dale's presence, the weight of that unfairness just seems to lift. The scene cuts to Duke Saxon's castle, where the war room atmosphere is thick and heavy. The Duke sits at the head of the table and demands a status report. The news rolling in is grim. The mountain fortress line separating the duchy from the Demon King's former territory is under siege by a massive orc tide. The northern lords and ranger units are already executing a strategic withdrawal from the 9th fortress, burning every supply they can't carry. The Duke absorbs all of it without blinking. The Scorched Earth retreat is intentional. Exhaust the enemy through barren land. Let them grind themselves down, crossing the upper Saxon River. Then hit them with the full main force at their weakest point. The advisors agree. It's time to mobilize. As the room clears out, the Duke signals Dale to stay behind. Alone with his son, the Duke makes it official. The mobile strike force, the elite Necromantes, now falls under Dale's absolute command, tasked with leading the spearhead when the large-scale clash erupts. On top of that, the Duke reveals that Sophia, the celebrated mage of the Blue Tower, has chosen to serve as Dale's personal advisor. Dale is genuinely surprised the Blue Tower is famous for staying neutral. The Duke shuts that down fast. Fighting the barbarian hordes isn't a political dispute, it's survival. Sophia chose this herself, and Dale's track record already speaks for itself. Dale accepts the command without hesitation, but he has one request before the meeting ends. He wants the Phantom Swordsman assigned specifically to his unit. Outside under a clear sky, Charlotte stands with her polished helmet in hand, eyes fixed on the horizon with grim determination. She fits the steel helm over her head, the visor clicking into place. Dale watches from a distance, and something in him settles. With her at his side, the battle already feels more winnable. He walks up to Charlotte now, fully encased in dark, gleaming plate armor, and laughs. He jokes that she finally looks the part for a protector of the famous Black Young Master. But the humor fades fast. A flicker of a fallen warrior crosses the back of his mind, and his expression goes heavy. He turns to Charlotte and makes a demand that catches her completely off guard. She is not allowed to die. When she starts reciting the traditional line about a knight's duty to sacrifice themselves for their lord, he cuts her off cold. A knight's real duty, he says, is never to betray the trust their lord places in them. He tells her straight he doesn't want her to die, and this campaign is not where her story ends. Behind the visor, Charlotte's face flushes with surprise and something deeper. She vows to carry his words in her heart, and Dale responds with a rare, genuine smile. The army moves. The Duke leads the massive main force south to engage the orc warband, while Dale takes his strike force Charlotte, Sir Bale, Sophia, and the Nightcrow Knights toward the upper Saxon River. Sophia riding beside him makes it clear she's no longer just a teacher. At the moonlit riverbank camp, Dale is awake while everyone else rests. Sophia finds him standing alone and he asks her directly why she agreed to join the campaign. She smiles softly and says she's simply fulfilling her calling and keeping a promise to stay by his side. Dale's worry dissolves into quiet gratitude. The calm shatters almost immediately. A crushing pressure sweeps over the camp and Dale's instincts fire. He shouts the order to mobilize and push everyone to the crossing point. Up on the jagged cliffs above, massive orcs with glowing red eyes are already in position. The enemy seized the initiative first. Dale grits his teeth. Sir Bale rushes to his side, breathless, waiting for the command to engage. Dale's face locks into full commander mode. Thousands of orcs pour through the river under the full moon, churning the water white, not a tactical advance, but a desperate forced breakthrough, signaling pressure from within their own ranks. Dale issues his orders fast and clean. Sir Bale takes 4 cavalry battalions to hit the vanguard head-on and prevent any bridgehead from forming on the riverbank. Dale personally leads the remaining 2 battalions to strike the rear. Archers in dark cloaks rain arrows into the river, cutting down the orc vanguard with brutal precision. Crimson blooms in the water as bodies go under. Cavalry thunder through the forest path, silver armor flashing. Dale at the front with cold, focused eyes. He's completely locked in, which is exactly why he doesn't notice the hooded figures lurking in the shadows behind a rock formation above the trail. One of them narrows glowing crimson eyes and grins, a trap already set for the riders charging straight into it. On the rocky ridges above the valley, archers hold their breath and release. The volley cuts through the dim sky and finds the charging orc riders below, dark blood spraying across the snow. But the orcs don't stop. One of the wolves leaps with impossible strength, clears the cliff, and lands among the archers, jaws snapping shut around a man's shoulder and dragging him down, screaming. The fight spills onto the bridge, where orc axe swings hammer the defensive line, and wolves tear through the formation. A panicked report moves through the ranks. The enemy has pushed all the way to the crossing. Bale urges his men to hold, while Dale watches from a distance, cold and analytical. He spots the fatigue in the orcs' movements. Their long march has left their rear support completely exposed. He turns to his cavalry and lays out the plan. Bypass the main engagement through the shallow ford and hit from behind while Bale holds the front. Bale grits his teeth and holds. A soldier drops dead beside him, but there's no time to look. Just as an orc rider looms over the last defenders, the ground shakes. Dale's cavalry crashes into the flank, and the energy of the fight shifts in an instant. Dale pushes the line forward, calls for no mercy on isolated units, and raises both hands as violet energy condenses around him. Shadow bullet spells streak through the air like purple comets, punching through orc hides. A knight beside him cleaves an orc in one swing. Sephia throws up a shimmering blue barrier to protect the line and warns Dale to move fast any delay, and the orcs pivot, close the net, and trap them all. The window slams shut almost immediately. A soldier screams that the riders are repositioning for a counter. Dale reads the situation in a second and orders the retreat. The objective is done, and holding here isn't worth the risk. His plan isn't just to run, he intends to lure the orcs far enough from their reinforcements, then turn and finish them cleanly. The unit gallops through dark woods, wolf riders thundering close behind. Dale checks the distance and decides it's enough, then Sephia goes rigid beside him. A human rider has emerged from the shadows behind the pursuing orcs, masked and draped in a dark, patterned cloak. He raises a hand and volatile flame erupts from his palm. Sephia screams the warning and acts in the same breath. A massive wall of crystalline ice surges from the ground between them and the enemy. It's barely enough. The masked rider hurls a sphere of concentrated fire that slams into the wall with enough force to shatter and vaporize it completely. One of Dale's soldiers catches the fringe of the blast, visible for a heartbeat, then gone. Not a single bone left behind. Dale stares at the ash. He knows exactly what they're up against. Purifiers, elite pyromancers from the Red Magic Tower, raised specifically to incinerate the Empire's enemies. Sephia confirms it with a trembling voice. Admitting their presence here means they came specifically for her. Dale snaps out new orders to spread out and keep moving. Tight formation against pyromancers is a death sentence. The situation has fully collapsed into worst-case territory as his unit scrambles to form a countercharge. The battlefield becomes a furnace. Charging the mages head-on means riding into pillars of flame that incinerate horse and rider without hesitation. Breaking formation means the wolf riders pick off stragglers one by one in the trees. There is no clean option. Dale accepts that he can't hold back any longer. The image of a horned girl flashes through his mind, a power he deliberately kept locked away for a moment exactly like this. He tells Sephia to dismount. She steps down with visible surprise, reminding him that her duty is to remain at his side. He meets her gaze and nods, his blue eyes burning with something unnatural as he prepares for what comes next. He turns to the cavalry and issues a final sweeping order retreat. No delay. One knight questions the sudden change in plans. Dale singles out Charlotte and orders her specifically to ride back and report their situation to his father. Charlotte's voice cracks. Her entire purpose is to protect him, and she doesn't want to leave. He shuts it down with the full authority of a lord, tells her not to worry, and gives her a small, confident smile before she rides off. The hooves fade into the trees until the clearing falls completely silent. Dale exhales and acknowledges what they've both already accepted. There's no way back now. Sephia asks if he ever actually planned to run. He looks at her with total calm and asks simply how he could have ever left her behind. They stand side by side as the orc wolf riders close in from every direction. Dale accepts the reality out loud. Escape is off the table. He turns to Sephia and asks if she ever planned to run. She smiles beneath her hood and asks how she could possibly leave her student behind. That's all either of them needs to hear. Sephia raises a hand, blue ribbons of light spiraling upward from her boots, and whispers an incantation. The ground explodes. A massive wave of jagged ice surges outward, flash freezing the entire orc vanguard wolves included mid-stride. The Red Tower mages stare at their encased front line in disbelief, unable to comprehend that she did it with a single gesture. Sephia doesn't give them a moment to recover. She identifies herself as a 6th Circle mage and elder of the Blue Tower, then demands to know why the Red Magic Tower is conspiring with barbarians. The purifiers don't answer. They ignite their palms and launch a massive fireball in response. Sephia casts Blue Dissonance and thrusts her hand forward. Blue mana collides with crimson fire, the two forces grinding against each other in a violent vortex of steam and light until the inferno collapses into nothing. Dale barely has time to process what he just watched before the order to advance rings out and the Nightcrow Knights charge through the frozen debris, lances cutting down the remaining orcs with brutal efficiency. Up on a rocky overlook, the Duke watches the carnage with Eris at his side. He addresses the young mages gathered behind him, voice cold with experience. The battlefield isn't a trial, it's an abyss. He tells them to let chaos become their sustenance, to carry fear but never break under it, and to burn every death they witness into their memory as fuel for who they'll become. He orders Eris to send the young mages to the crossing point, and before she can even respond, Charlotte arrives at a full gallop, barely keeping her helmet under her arm. The young master is in serious danger. Charlotte doesn't wait for a second order. She rallies the knights and spurs her horse into a desperate charge. Back in the clearing, a purifier conjures a roaring fireball and hurls it at Dale and Sephia. The two move in sync, slamming their hands forward as a jagged ice wall erupts from the earth and absorbs the blast. The wall also blocks the path of their own incoming cavalry, but Dale makes the call it's a necessary trade to prevent casualties. He then turns the wall into a weapon, shattering it into thousands of ice needles with shard magnum. Every fragment whistles toward the hooded figures and turns to steam on contact. The purifiers are wearing flame armor, not just a shield, but the same protection that let them survive Sephia's earlier assault. The purifiers ignore the knights entirely and push straight towards Sephia. Dale steps in front of his teacher and fires a shadow bullet that sends one attacker crashing to the ground, coughing blood. Dale demands answers. The man just smiles through the blood and speaks of a world that will burn and those who will rise from the ashes. Then his skin starts to glow. Dale puts it together a second too late. The flame armor isn't just armor. It turns the body into a living bomb. He screams for Sephia to run, but the man laughs and detonates himself in a blinding white explosion that tears a smoldering crater into the earth. Dale pulls himself off the scorched ground, body aching from the impact. Sophia is alive beside him, breathing, but unconscious. She cast her ice armor onto him at the last possible second and took the explosion herself. Frost still clings to his blackened plate. Around them, the Nightcrow Knights lie scattered across the cracked earth, broken and silent. The pride of his unit, gone. Before Dale can fully process the devastation, another hooded figure steps out of the burning ruins with a sphere of rolling flame in his palm. He spots Dale still breathing and celebrates, launching a streak of white-hot fire straight at him. Dale moves before the attack can land. He draws a blade of pure shadow wrapped in violet energy and launches forward in one fluid motion. The dark sword carves through the assassin's torso and silences him mid-scream. An explosion erupts behind Dale from the dying man's body, but he doesn't flinch. He straightens up and marks the count. That's 2 down. Flashes tear through his memory. Dark rooms, cold steel, the agony of modification, pain that hasn't stopped for a single day. He turns his sapphire eyes toward the remaining purifiers and warns them running isn't an option. Every second of suffering he's carried will be repaid 1,000-fold. The shadow blade hums with a dark, malevolent light as Dale prepares to collect the debt in full.